please, for a couple of minutes.
Yep, she's on.
Okay, well, I'll call the morning workshop session to order. Again, let the record show, as you can see, all three commissioners are present. We do have a schedule change. The county assessor is ill today, and so the scheduled workshop that was supposed to begin at 8:30 will be rescheduled. And so I guess I'd look to my seatmates if there's other business. If not, we will recess until 10 o'clock for our next scheduled workshop with the finance folks.
I think it'd be good to have a round table about what's going on. We're all going to a lot of meetings.
Okay, we can. Here, we got this time.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere else.
I guess I'll start. I've had multiple meetings with Skamania County Commissioners about a multitude of multitude of things, from timber to county operations to COVID dollars, and it's been a couple of years, I think, since we last had a meeting between the two county commissioners. And I know 2 out of the 3 Skamania County commissioners would love to have a dual meeting like they did before. Way too many things on the list that Tom Lannon had. He was just spouting off. But some of them are like our financial system that's held together with duct tape. Theirs is held together with glue, and they're going to be going through the same process, and would love to talk to us about, how we can find efficiencies, maybe have one looking through it, try to figure out if we can make those things work together, so that when we upgrade, I don't know, I think there's a lot of room for efficiency and growth looking into the future between the counties. We've done loan labor to them in a lot of different ways, and probably something we should keep looking at, because when the COVID dollars are over, they're going to be in very dire financial straits. They made it through this one right now, but just want to know your guys' thoughts on number 1, should we do it? And number 2, what things would you like to talk to them about?
Well, I'd say for myself, yeah, absolutely, as far as I'm always about communication and building those relationships. And I know Commissioner Hamlin really well and worked with him. But the other 2 have had limited, some with Tom Lannon. The other one, his name is actually escaping me right now, which shows the level of, that we need to get to know each other a little better. But yeah, we could have a joint meeting. Maybe we could do it at the Pioneer Center. That's sort of kind of middle ground. I mean, it's on our border, where we could have a joint meeting with them if we wanted to. I do see it. We have several things that we share. Obviously timber, stuff on the White Salmon River, really public health as well. Many of their we're serving their citizens. In the east end of Skamania County. They're in our service area. We share a school district, runs across too. So there's all of those issues. We're actually really connected. At least the east half of Skamania County is with West Klickitat County. So I'd be all for it. Any thoughts? Yeah. Maple bars.
I know how to keep them quiet.
Maple bar. All right. We put that on the list. A dozen, which I love maple bars. So that's one of my
Maple bar number 2. So
yeah. Just so you know, maple bars and apple fritters are
no
my
apple
favorites.
fritters, just maple bar.
And those other little, what are those called? They're like a little brick of grease. I can't even think what they're called. But you're like, ooh, what are those? It is.
I don't do donuts anymore.
Yeah, I don't either.
Donuts are bad for you, but
Yeah. That's why they're good.
No, I wouldn't turn down any joint meeting with any. I don't care if it's across the river that wanted to do a joint meeting. We should be doing it. But
you know, transportation, that's another thing as far as integrating our, they have I don't know that our transit is, you know, we're not really planning together. I mean, we have the regional transportation strategies, and I know the committee includes them and us and folks across the river, but they, that would be another area. I'm just thinking off the top of my head as far as things. Obviously, water too is another, you know, we border on the Columbia, we have. And then what happens with the Pacific lands?
Yep. that was on my
That's,
list.
yeah, that would be definitely, as far as kind of, it would be nice if we had a consistent joint kind of approach to that, what's going to happen with that. Because I know the tribe is
Has first right.
has first right
Of off
of offer
on the lower section.
on the lower section. So
I was told last week that the Forest Service is working on purchasing the Northwestern Lake Park. We did, and so Tom wanted to add that to the list of things to talk about. There was short discussion about maybe having the two counties go in together on the park a while back. And, you know, those haven't really materialized.
Right.
I know the Forest Service is very interested, and of course they want control over that river.
okay. All right, what else is going on?
So another one is with the SDS cell, we're being accused of not have been doing enough. We're not involved enough. We're not leading from the top.
We're not instructing private business how to do their job.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So this is again what we've been accused of.
Then
And
we
so,
did a good job, because we shouldn't be instructing private business on how to do their job.
and one would agree with that. With that said, though, there are a lot of things that will be quickly happening with that. And one of those, you know, you've got the jobs, you've got the change of ownership, you've got the HBUs, you've got, you know, a lot of different things that are going to be happening with that. And one of the statements was, well, why haven't we had a meeting? Because SDS lands are in Hood River, Klickitat, Wasco County. Why have all three of us not got together to talk about?
But what are we talking about?
Well, that was my question.
Talking's fine.
So there's going to be a lot of, so
I think
one of them is recreation. We have a large amount of hunting that goes on SDS properties. We have a large amount of mountain biking that goes on SDS properties, a lot of hiking that goes hiking trails. And, you know, depending on who the new owner is, that could all get locked up.
Right.
On top of that, we have wildfire in the gorge, which can be by state, as we've seen from the Eagle Creek fire. I guess we just haven't had like a sit down meeting, kind of like with Skamania County. There's things to talk about, but the thought was, well, this would be a city and county and by state discussion, you know, at the commission level, mayor and commission level. And I was like, well, I hate having a meeting to just have a meeting, but we probably have a lot of things that we could discuss between the cities and Wasco and Hood River. Because we've got things like the fact that we are being flooded with people from Portland, and it's hard to find somewhere to park anymore, and wildfires, and I can't remember all the other things that there were to talk about. So it was brought up, and I said I'd bring it up to you guys on.
Like I said, I'll have a meeting with anybody as long as there's something we can actually accomplish or should be accomplishing. But if the purpose of the meeting is so we as a government entity can apply pressure to a private corporation, then I'm not interested, because I don't believe government energy should supply pressure to a private corporation. So.
Yeah, as to the SDS sale, I'm not even really sure what our role is, other than we can, um, illustrate the importance, of course, the timber jobs, all that stuff, but ultimately, these are private lands. And whether SDS's successor chooses to lock mountain bikers, and that's their business, it's their land. And, I think folks have not been appreciative of the role that SDS has played in the community and what a community partner they've been, until the potential for that partnership to go away is now in front of everybody. And it's like, yeah, they don't have to. It's private land. And I'm not even sure I would encourage, again, you can educate, I guess, the new folks on what the previous people allowed, but it's really going to be up to them what they want to do, any more than I would tell them what their harvest schedule should be, or they of course have to comply with all the rules. And we would certainly, not more than encourage, we would.
I worry that if we go hold some joint state, joint county, joint something meeting on SDS, it may be looked at as that we're trying to apply pressure to a private entity. So, unless we actually had an agenda and we were going to stay on an agenda like that, then I would be fine with it. But other than that, I don't just want to have a willy-nilly.
Well, I would say for me, I'm not opposed to, we do apply pressure, or I don't want to say, I don't like the word pressure. We do encourage businesses. No, and I don't have any problem. There is a role in that again, as long as it's not undue, or it's quid pro quo, or it's like, hey, this is what we want, but we can certainly encourage businesses all the time.
Right, encourage is different than pressure, though.
Right.
I look at
Pressure to me is like, you do this, or there's going to be some negative thing that we're going to use our power, our influence to try to force.
Right, if you don't
coerce you
if you don't
into a
do
certain
our way and you don't sell to the
Right.
right company,
then
then we're going to have a bad working relationship going forward.
right. No,
That-
I'm not
that's a
interested in
pressure.
that. Right.
Right.
No, so I would agree with that statement as far as again, I don't think that, yes.
Would you please announce that the assessors?
I was gonna.
Oh, I
mention that
see.
once we
Oh,
got done with
great
this
on
on
there. I will announce again when the assessor needs to reschedule. She's out ill today. So we will reschedule that workshop at the earliest convenience. So if folks are here, which there's basically one member of the public, Mr. Wagner, I see on there. So of course, this is a public meeting and you are welcome to stay on and listen to our conversations, but the assessor will not be here today to discuss assessments and valuations and the things that we were hoping to have the discussion about.
So for now, we're just kind of BSing
Yeah.
until we end this, and then we'll restart it at 10 o'clock for budget stuff.
So I had the same thing is that I didn't want to have a joint by-state meeting on SDS. If
Right.
we
Yeah,
have a
other-
meeting, it would be an agenda and SDS, maybe a topic on the agenda. But that's it. In terms of that, so there's Hood River County is pretty getting close to being plumb full up. They have land use laws that are quite more restrictive than Washington's, and
Do they have room to expand an urban
So-
growth boundary over
so
there?
the Gorge 2020, we only get 50 acres of expansion in the gorge forever, in essence.
Yeah.
And so there is no room for growth for the most part. They've got a couple large industrial parcels left, but most of their stuff is built out.
What's done is done, and no population growth will occur in Hood River, is what you're saying.
you
or at
can-
least close to the river
At
in the
least-
scenic area.
within the scenic area, but then also their land use laws out in Odell and south, that's the
It's
same.
basically the scenic area across the whole state, really. Their land use system is a
And
top down, not a bottom up like Washington's is supposed to be. It's supposed to be.
Wasco is in the same situation. They've got ag land zoning that's 480 plus acres before you can build something. Yeah. And so one of those gorge discussions is we have all the buildable land. Piscomania County doesn't have any buildable
Private
land.
land.
And they're well aware that they have nowhere to build. And so the buildable land in the gorge is, or at least within driving distance of the gorge, is Klickitat County. And we're seeing that pressure. And we're going to, now that, Hood River's plumb full, we're going to see a lot more of that pressure.
Right, but we're also gonna feel the pressure from inside our county, from the people that don't want development and growth in their areas, and that's on both sides of the county, really.
I agree with this. And so it's something, this is that long range planning, that comprehensive planning.
That we need to figure out.
That's also, gorge wide comprehensive planning that we're gonna have to figure out. We're gonna probably see something big coming from Dallasport here soon, real big. Something that we haven't seen in the county ever.
Well, there was earlier when it predated me, but there was it was actually Don Struck's brainchild, was the Six Counties Coalition, which was still going, but it was the 6 gorge counties, so it included Multnomah and Clark. And it kind of stopped, so we would meet, I think, once a month or so, and it was just to kind of develop communication, and it wasn't scenic area specific, but that was generally the focus on it. The problem I saw with it is the Multnomah and Clark rarely participated, and then when they did, their philosophy and outlook was radically different than the 4 east counties, and it really.
So I'm game with the 4 counties.
Right, that's what I was thinking. I think we should be focused on I think restarting that effort or something like it because I do see, Wasco, Klickitat, Skamania, and Hood River have, we're really the region, the gorge, as we call it. Clark and Multnomah, they may play in the gorge, but most of Multnomah that's in the gorge is all Forest Service land. It's just different. And Clark only has just a teeny little sliver. And so the 4 of us, and I think philosophically, are probably better aligned. Not that there's not diversity, because there is. There's lots of diversity, and I'm all about.
Yeah, but Hood River diversity is different than Multnomah County diversity.
Yeah.
So
I would say. And so.
Well, I would say Hood River County is pretty closely aligned, in
Right,
terms of.
as far as Hood River City.
Hood River City might be a little
Right.
more like Multnomah County.
but Hood River City is more aligned with White Salmon City.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily make them Multnomah County, Portland City.
Right.
So yeah, no,
Different priorities.
Yeah,
the
different
4 in the gorges.
Yeah, I
don't
like
think
that.
we need to-
Priorities. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
They just have different priorities than what we do.
Yeah, different ideas, but all working towards I don't know that it's a common goal, but not alienating goal. Anyway, 4's good.
Okay.
So just food for thought. My priority though was the meeting between Skamania County and us. It's great to talk about big things, but when we have stuff that's actionable.
Actionable on the ground. That's part of it for me, is that so much of this job, the frustration of it is that we are asked by our citizens, our constituents, to do things, fix situations that we have very limited control over, that we rely on federal agencies, state agencies, and we spend so much of our time. It's like things that are actually in our control, we're pretty responsive as far as if we think it's something that we should do and it's a good idea, we can do it and we can make it happen. And that's really good when we can do that. But so much of it, it's like trying to convince, cajole, pressure
Another entity
to do the right thing. And that's so it's, sometimes it seems like we just get together, with the other folks that are in the same boat too. And there's value in commiserating and seeing collectively, because I can say, 2 counties are a lot stronger than 1. And then the 4 in the region by state. I mean, we've leveraged that strength before. I'm thinking of the airport in Dallasport where it's a by state, nobody knows what to do with us because, it's across the state lines and we actually work together as a region. And we actually have a pretty good history of working really well together across state lines, across county lines. And so I think, there's value in really kind of enhancing those relationships because the players have changed too.
Completely.
And so it's good. I had said that, Hood River County has been kind of that's not there's some new folks on there that I'm not really engaged with. A couple of the old timers, yes, but there's been pretty big change, actually change in Skamania County, not recently, but over a longer period of time. Same with Wasco. They've had quite a change in Wasco County, and it's just really good. So yeah, I'd be supportive of that.
Yeah, I think you come up with the idea and throw the idea out. And you're not gonna have to come up with an agenda. You're gonna come up with 1 or 2 items, and each one of them are gonna have their own little thing. And by the time it's done, you have an agenda.
Yeah. What we're gonna talk about. Okay.
Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
We got the 5 million in that Senator King was able to get through. So we're sitting on another 5 million on top of that. And then we'll find out about the federal dollars.
Right, as Jamie's able to come up with.
If Jamie's able to come up with that soon, hopefully. And that'll get us down that engineering track. The EIS is wrapping up, getting wrapped up. So the next big thing, and it's on, we have all these millions of dollars, and supposedly it's supposed to take us $1 million to figure out the governance. Yeah, I will buy too. So I want to talk to you guys about who do we think should be the governance of that. The thought was to have 6, which you guys know as well as I do, you never want an even number. But if it's not 6, then there's going to be the power between Oregon and Washington is going to be something.
Right, and in a perfect world, you can make it work with an uneven, yes, you need an uneven to settle things. And
Or you debate long enough for one person to change his mind.
Yeah.
Well, usually there's at least one person who's never present in a meeting.
Right. Yeah, you have a practical quorum. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I was always I think it's really going to be difficult to sell to the Washington side if it's not equal representation. And I think it's going to be hard to sell to the Oregon side if there's any scenario that you end up with the majorities on the Washington side.
Yeah.
So in an uneven, unless you end up with you could do it like we do at the airport, because it's the same situation there where there is there's 3 appointees from Oregon that the Oregon entity appoints. There's 3 on the Washington, and then the 7th, those people choose the 7th person.
Oh,
So that's how it's done there. And it flips back, and it's, you know, in that, because it's the same situation where you have these 2 states, and it's like no, so it's like the deciding vote is decided by the deciders, and so the 6 have to decide
How
on.
long are those seats though? I mean, you can always take the 7th person for 2 years is from here, and then for 2 years.
You can do that too. We don't do that. I think they're on the airport board, they're 4-year terms, and they have switched. Sometimes 4 of them happen to be from Oregon, and sometimes 4 of them happen to be from Washington. And it hasn't been an issue there. It's worked well, but that was the solution that I think actually Steve DiGiulio drafted that.
Oh.
That was his solution to how you work with a bi-state agency that's got two jurisdictions and have people feel okay with. And there was a lot of bad blood apparently that was when that was first formed between
It wasn't my fault.
Yeah, you were, yeah. So, apparently that's what I've heard tell. I never saw any evidence of it, but it was a.
Airport issue was the first time I was in a public meeting, not the last, but the first time I was called an idiot by the airport folks. So, yeah.
So that's an option. I think I supported the governance, kind of the concept of the governance structure of the, equal, and then, the cities, the county, the keeping it local. Although we talked about also early on about, if you're going to have, the dots involved or federal agents, they're going to want some seat at the table, even if it's just ex officio where they can be there. I mean, ultimately, it'd be nice if they just took the damn thing.
well, that's right.
That's you can have all the seats.
Yeah. So that's,
Now, why it takes $1 million to say, I think.
I think it's ridiculous.
I think it's ridiculous. I don't think it's that complicated. I think there is a finite number of options, and it doesn't take $1 million to explore those options.
So the one would be is so if you want to do a bridge authority that we don't have legislation for, it's going to take legislation, and so you've got all of that part that you're going to hire somebody and
To go lobby.
to lobby and all that stuff.
Right.
But if we just do a bi-state compact rather than legislation, and I guess the other thing is if Oregon wants to be equal, Oregon needs to come up with some major money.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask.
Washington Curtis is saying he thinks we can come up with $100+ million.
Right.
Well, that gives you the seat. And if the feds come up with a bunch of money, then if Oregon doesn't come up with it, then why
You don't have
we-
it. Yeah, why should we have you on if you're not helping paying for the thing? So buy your seat.
there is it's a weird situation where the city of Hood River and Hood River County don't need it in their mind. They don't need the bridge. It's nice,
Yeah, that's a mistake though.
but we have 8,000 people in Klickitat County on the western end who go across that bridge to do their shopping and eating and stuff. But
I mean, they have a viable point. I don't think there's a heck of a lot more Washington people driving that bridge than Oregon people.
I know, but the Washington people are coming and spending money.
Right. But it's just like, I mean, it's the same argument as I-5 bridge in Portland. You're trying to get the Portland people to pay for a bridge so the Washington people can come in and take the jobs and
Spend their money.
Right. But you're looking at it, if you're looking at it from a Portland perspective on the I-5 bridge, why do I need to build the bridge? You're going to build the bridge because you want to make sure your people can come over and have the job and spend the money and do whatever. I don't need to spend it. That's the same thing that's happening in the rivers. My point is it's the same mentality. And in all reality, they're 100% right, because if they never spend $1 on that bridge, we're still going to be pushing to upgrade that bridge because we need it more than they do.
Well, that bridge is built out, the entire port, all their nice things that they have. I mean,
That's
that's all
the
been
part they're
paid
gonna-
for by Washington.
Right, that's the part they're gonna miss is, the port collecting dollars. That's what they're gonna miss.
So a new bridge wouldn't be a toll bridge.
No, it will be a toll.
Like, unless there's just so much free money that comes.
Free money, you don't
flying
need
out of the
it.
sky that-
I used to argue with Hood River County, they take all the money from the bridge, but everybody else has to pay to fix it.
Yeah.
Well,
Still true.
Nothing changes.
We're having the same argument still, but so. But I would say in the Dalles Bridge is a benefit to the city of the Dalles.
oh, yeah, absolutely.
That there's, a huge amount of commerce travels over that bridge that gets, I mean, I know my dollars get spent in the Dalles. And if there wasn't a bridge there, I guess I would spend it somewhere else.
Yeah, you would.
I mean, in some ways, it would be, if the bridge in Hood River fell into the water tomorrow, I guess we would adapt and you would see businesses on the Washington side. Other than the tax, there is the tax disadvantage because of sales tax.
You want to see growth in Klickitat County, you remove that bridge and don't build one. Because then nobody can go across without driving into Portland or driving up to the Dalles. You would start getting the businesses and the growth on our
We
side
just
versus.
spend our
spending
money
it
more
over
in the
there.
Dells than we would in Hood River.
Right.
I actually told the Dallas they should start planning for a second bridge.
Yeah, down closer to my end of the
Delport
world.
ever built out.
Right, build it down at
At least find
the
a
old aluminum plant, that in that vicinity. That'd be a lot better
We sold all the property for where you.
for me.
The least.
By the time I go to Home Depot, that would cut my trip in half. Up and around and back down.
Now Google would get the whole.
Yeah.
There you go. Hood River doesn't want it, we'll put it across the line.
Yeah, really, just move the bridge upstream a little bit while. It's pretty narrow there. That's a good jumping spot.
Yeah, right across the narrows.
We're not starting the planning process over there, boys. Nice try.
It'd probably be cheaper there, you think.
Oh, I would imagine it's way narrower.
Ferries, yeah, we go back to
Still
ferries.
there, you could
But
put that back in.
I don't know. I would just say continue on. That's,
So, just trying to give you an update. What do you guys got?
We just did updates like a week and a half ago, so mean nothing.
Okay, so, I sat in last night on the, DNR's, they had Deloitte and Touche come in and look at all of their operations and how they do things and how they're gonna make money into the future and a bunch of legislative changes that will allow them to do a bunch of stuff. Throughout the entire presentation, the one thing I didn't hear is that they're gonna actually go out and start managing their timber like a business.
Of course not.
So they're doing a kind of like a comment online form voting for their directions on where they should go, and it's due in I think a week or so. I haven't went on to it yet and looked at it, but I'm definitely think the county needs to comment. They were looking at one of the interesting things was their asset classes and their return on the value of the asset class. And their timber ground, they have a 7% return. Dave might have written the stuff down. I didn't write it down. McClure, are you there?
Yes.
Doesn't mean you're
I
paying
know,
attention.
he's logged in. Guess
All right. So their return on timberland is like 7%. One of the things that they were saying
I
during,
would challenge that as far as on our timberland.
we're at 0 right now.
Yeah, it's like,
So-
but even over a period of time,
Yes,
it's way in. If we were getting 7% return,
I would be happy.
I would be happy.
Well, I don't think, we have different timber than they do on the coast, but the average might be 7.
So, and then, it had like the telecommunications and all that,
Right,
and other
other
different stuff
lines
and what
of
they're
business.
doing. But what they're saying though is that they currently get 25% off the top for their management fee on trust land, our trust lands. On the common school lands, they are getting like 31.2%. And what they have found in the Deloitte and Touche is that it's not covering their costs. And they would like to
Raise that.
raise those rates, or have the state legislature just pay them the difference and give them the money that it takes to manage this. For me, that's really, really difficult to understand that 25% doesn't cover it. When I can go out and hire a forester tomorrow and they can manage my entire tree farm of 20,000 acres for 7 to 9%.
Government,
Well,
takes 12 employees to hold a shovel.
well, the question is where do we want to, what direction should we be influencing? I'm trying to use the term you used.
Speaking our mind, and I would agree with the direction you would be, we're probably all in agreement on. I don't know that it would make any difference to submit something, but we should.
But the only solution is to get them to let us take our trust land back
Right.
and let us manage it ourselves. And they will fight that to the nail because they're gonna lose the revenue. You know, as their portfolio shrinks, their cost per unit is efficient as it is gonna get even worse because you know, we pushed on this, but it's, you know, it would take a legislative change and they, unless we want to build and work some kind of coalition with other folks, but it's hard because looking at the numbers, we're in the worst shape. That's the way I feel. So there's other counties that their county trust land, they're getting a decent return on. And I always have to question, why is that? And I get that, you know, it's different Pacific County than it is in Klickitat County. Although most of our timber land is in the
Good growing ground.
is the good growing ground. It's not out here. It's in western Klickitat County where it's adjacent to SDS land. It's adjacent that they're managing and that they get a much better return on their investment. And I get because I've had this discussion with Mr. McClure before about we do bear, like we take more of the share of some of the mitigation and stuff so that the private ground can harvest more. I get that, although I don't think that's appropriate for trust land because the trust land the whole point of it is to generate revenue to the trust beneficiaries, not to be mitigation.
For the private sector.
Right, that's not what its purpose is. The state with its own, that's not trust ground, if they choose to do that, that's their business.
That's a federal.
And the feds, that's apparently the only role they're playing now, is their mitigation for everything. But the trust lands should be managed for revenue. That's what it's for. It's not for habitat. It's not for conservation.
I don't think ours will ever be managed that way. So.
Well, it would be if we managed it.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah,
you gotta
so-
get it, and that's my point. So I don't mind, being on board and, letter or whatever, spending litigation money to try to make it force the state to turn it over. I think it's a waste of time.
So being that that's the waste of time, the best option I've come up with is Deloitte and Touche ran this number on what's your ROI on it, okay? And they look at a sustained yield analysis over the entire western portion and the entire eastern portion. Well, if you're acting as my trust, you're holding in trust for me, that means I need an ROI. Whether it's on a 5-year, I need a 7% ROI over 5 years, every year. And I also need a sustainable yield harvest, both to get my ROI, because that's the only way I'm going to get my ROI, but also to ensure that there is a flow of lumber through the system or logs for the sawmill so that,
Stays in business.
it stays in business.
And we're not paying $7 for 2x4.
And so if
7 to
If you're-
26.
if you're going to be the trust, manage a trust, then you need to start producing for that trust.
Right, and I have zero argument with that. And I would sign that if you wrote it. I just don't know how we tell a state agency to do their job. I don't know.
Well,
I
you mean-
Well, I would be, maybe it's the, if we look at our, and again, I've only looked anecdotally from, what they give us, and it goes back 10 years or 12 years.
Which is scary. Every time I get in my email, I'm like, oh, great, let's see what it is this time. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
what
it's
I
still basically zero.
thought. That's what I thought.
And I look at other, I was trying to look at, counties with comparable or somewhere close. And I had done the numbers on the, return on, per acre, and it's like, we are the worst and have been
Do you think,
actually over a 10-year period. So
Right.
it's because we had asked them when Larry Leach was in here a couple of years ago. It's like, what's going on? And it's like, well, you were over harvested for a while. And so that we're having a pause on your land.
you'll be back up in 20 years?
Well, or soon or whatever. It's like, okay, so if we were, then the out year, if we basically have had nothing for 5 years, the previous 5 years we were in the over harvesting, but even if I add the over harvest with and average them together, it's still 50% of what every other county is getting as a return on their, so it's like,
Do you think-
why are we special?
Do you think they're under harvesting us just because they don't want the opposition that's gonna be yelling at them?
No, what it is, a lot of it's with the HCP. So they changed the HCP for
HCP, what
the
is that?
Habitat Conservation
Got it.
Plan for everything on the west side of the county, so
Yeah.
west of 141.
Yeah.
And they did that in 2012,
Right, that's about
and
when,
it was in the state. And so then when they redid that and they did it so that they could harvest a bunch of that ground up in Yakima County, Beetle Ground, and in Glenwood and Track B. And so that's where they went to harvest, but most of that's in Yakima County, so we don't see any benefit of that. But when they changed that HCB, it got really ugly for us. Jerkies went in and they looked at all of the stands and they found that there's a lot more wood there and that there is availability for harvest. They just haven't been doing it. And so on 20,000 acres, you should be harvesting 1 to 2% of that ground per year. Okay. So it's 200 to 400 acres a year. You should be harvesting. That's close. It's $500,000 to $1 million a year coming into the county. Thereabouts.
But you get no arguments from me. You just gotta convince the people that tell the guy with the chainsaw to turn it on. Tell the guy with the
Well, it's
chainsaw
not
to turn
the,
it on.
it's the guy laying out the timber sales. And
Right, that's
we
the guy
need-
telling who to
what
turn the
we need
chainsaw.
is we need someone like Hillary telling the central manager that, or some sort of MOU or something that says, you will start managing this trust for the trustee, and you will think about where you're gonna go log and ensure that you're trying to pull 100 acres a year, at least 200, at least 100, more likely 200 to 400 off of this trust. And then you can package it up with, because it's all surrounded by common schools or state
right,
schools
so,
or whatever.
right,
But make sure you're putting your trustee, the smallest trustee that's in that area first in that design, because common school is going to make up all the difference everywhere.
right.
I agree.
But we might have to use some political capital and goodwill to get there.
Yeah, I think maybe the place to start is we need to have a discussion. We need to have a meeting with Hillary. Because I don't know that and have our facts and stuff together, and because it's a compelling case.
Yeah, messed up for a lot of years.
for a lot of, a year here, a year, yeah, I get that. As far as if you look at the overall averages, it'll work out, but it's like ours does not. And there's something's going on. And, we have this huge asset that we are really not getting any return on. Like, we don't even budget it. I mean, we don't count it. It's like, and if I, as a private citizen, had a 20,000 acre asset that I didn't expect any revenue off of,
Yeah, you give me 1,000 acres, I can bring you money every year.
every year. Give me 20,000 acres and I'll bring you a lot of money every year.
If you're allowed to.
Right.
That's where I'm saying.
But the other
that's
people
a
are,
different mentality.
but it applies to everybody or nobody. If the same,
It should be
just
for
treat
everyone on
us
board.
the same as everybody
Right.
else. And it's like, there's something is different about how we're getting treated. Because because again, we have, we traded out, that was really the last time I had, and that was a long time ago. That was with her predecessor was over the transfers out of the Major Creek Basin that was in the scenic area, which we
got burned.
well, we got burned terrible on that. But again, why is there no, what we got for that is good timber ground out. It's up in the Buck Creek. So I'm very familiar with it. I'm
Oh, yeah.
sure.
But when we log that, we don't get the 75%. We only get like 30%.
Right.
Whenever that gets logged. Yeah. The transfer ground is a bad deal for the beneficiaries.
So, okay.
So those were half my meetings yesterday. But I know that Skamania County wants to talk about it because they're in the same boat when it comes to that. Because a lot of their, the HCP's got really good trees that are locked up. And the other thing is if you're going to leave it in the HCP and you're not going to log it, you're going to start paying us for the environmental benefits that we're providing.
Right. Right. If that is a state priority, the state, meaning the state taxpayers, need to pay for it. Not just our taxpayers. Okay. Well, it would seem like the next step to me is to get our data together so that we're really familiar with it. We understand. Because again, all I've done is just did it based on the reports they send us, quarterly. Here's what you should expect in this quarter. Is that a big zero? I forget we had one, it was literally like $45. And it was like, what is that? Is that
So we used to.
It's a percentage of one windblown tree that they
hauled off? I don't know.
There's the orchard out there that is leased and it's on some of our transfers.
Oh, and that's what we get some payment from
We used to get like 600 or something a year, and that was what we've been getting. That was that little number.
That
I don't
little
know
number.
the 45.
I swear it was like $45 one time in the report, and it was like, what would that even be? It's like a rounding.
Then there was discussion of they were going to log some good trees out around that same orchard area, and they were going to then lease the ground as orchard ground for higher and better use.
Okay.
To I think Mount Adams Orchards, but that whole deal ended up falling through. Because the big push though is like to get on to the solar side though, that in their thing about, like how we're going to make money, we're going to turn our lands into the money making.
Right. We're going to diversify.
We're diversifying.
They really seem like they want to get out of timber.
Well, so that,
They don't want to cut trees.
well, did you guys see what Peter Goldmark and his predecessor came out in the Seattle Times saying we need a 10-year plan to stop logging all DNR properties, and we're going to use it for ecosystem services for carbon sink.
That's what I'm saying. So we can write a letter, but we have to be able to change that mentality, and I don't know how you do that with a letter.
Well, but again, I'm the trust beneficiary, and if you want to do that, that's fine. Make me whole, I don't care. I care in that I want timber supply for my mill, but that's important too. I don't want to get rid of that. But at the very least, make me whole as a trust, as the beneficiary. And I don't know, and if that means you're gonna pay me out of the money that you're making from solar leases or whatever, carbon taxes, whatever, then, but make the trustee, make the beneficiaries whole. And
You think you guys can get that accomplished? I'm more than happy to back it.
I thought this was gonna be your problem.
I think you're spinning the wheels, but,
But I go, but I think as far as I think the data's on our side, that we can make a compelling case, at least to,
on the
rattle the
terms,
cage
yeah.
on the numbers, because that numbers don't lie, and it's not, into the future. It's like, let's look back.
Right.
Let's look back over the last 10 years and take those numbers and
And I'm sure
explain.
they have a forecast for the next 10 years, so they're usually.
I have a forecast for the next 10 years. It looks really similar to the last 5 years.
Yeah, and I said, I'm game
But
to
you
move forward.
continue talking. I'm gonna run down the hall for a
I
second.
just don't wanna, spend a absorbent amount of time.
No.
And I definitely don't wanna spend a whole lot of resources or money on something that I don't think, without
Think of the fool there.
state policy shifting, you're just gonna be modeling, but, I don't picture them giving up their income. I don't picture them giving up the trees because they know we wanna cut them. And they'll hold them just to make sure we don't cut them. I'm game with the argument and you're both dead on. I just don't think you're gonna get anything back.
I'll wait for him to get back to finish off this other part of this conversation on the trees.
Yeah, because I needed him to ask him another question. So.
I'm gonna go grab some water.
From the hall or from the office across the hall?
I'm getting smart. I haven't drank that.
Yeah, I would love to get our trust lands back, but
Well, it ain't gonna happen.
yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
I spent time trying, thinking of creative ways to get pieces of it back.
I think if every single county in the state signed on to that, it wouldn't
Still
happen. Like I said, that's a policy shift, because they don't want you to have control over logging anymore.
Well, so there's a lot more to it. So all of our lands are intermeshed in between DNR common school lands. So if they gave it back to us, we don't have easements to get through that land. Like there's a multitude of.
That's irrelevant thing giving it back. Nobody gives back something that they have in their hand, so.
So in my conversations, like with Hood River and Jay McLaughlin,
You tighten up my bag.
don't break the window.
Yeah.
We can't afford the plywood to cover it.
Yeah, yeah.
So one of the questions that was brought up, and this goes back like to the SDS stuff, that we don't know who's going to buy it, but whoever buys it is going to have a 10-year program to likely sell it, like everything else. I mean, it's just how the businesses run. The other thing that we're sitting on is we're sitting on $12.5 million that we get 0% ROI on, in essence, 0.0005% or whatever. And so Hood River is sitting there like, what is wrong with you guys? Like, every time we have money, we go out and we buy more timber ground because we get an ROI off of it. And it's like, if you guys have $12 million, you could go and buy a bunch of good growing timber on the west side of the county that's up for sale, or that's going to come up for sale. And you could continue, like, it might be an HBU, it might be something else, but you could buy it and continue using it for timber production into the future. And if you buy it, then the state can't come in and take it because it's not a tax, tax title stuff. And then, you could start building a business model like what Hood River County House. And I was like, oh, I never thought of that.
I don't know, I never thought of that either.
But at least, like if you go and use the money today, you could start getting an ROI on it tomorrow. And I was like, 7% return on 12 million is a pretty good return. And then right now in today's log market, you could be getting like a 12% return on that. And I was like,
Or
well,
50% at the price of, but
well, log prices are over $1,000.
Yeah.
You could be getting a really good return.
how does Hood River, because the part that's always concerned me a little bit is the vast majority of the value is tied up in the timber that one forest fire, and I don't know, does SDS insure their timber?
No, nobody ever.
That's what I thought.
And so that was like with
That's the
Sim-
risk piece of it.
there's risk in everything,
Sure.
but like with Simcoes, your risk is a lot higher than it is over there. And like, so you look at the fires that just occurred down in Sweet Home and all that, the big fires. So Weyerhaeuser's out there cutting every stick of burnt timber trees that died in that.
I was
So
gonna
they're
say, 'cause
still-
burnt timber is still
so-
harvestable.
So as long as you take it in the first 2 years,
Yeah.
you can still get all your
Yeah.
value out of it.
Right.
It might reset, some of your planning for the next thing.
Like you said,
And the stuff
and
that was pre-commercial, you're gonna lose that money.
as far as investing in timberland, there's a big difference to me in investing in timberland over there where you actually have real timber versus over here where you have toothpicks. Yeah, not interested over here. Over there, willing to listen.
But I don't know if that's something we're sitting on 12.5 million that we're getting nothing for.
Yeah, but
And so it's depreciating because,
if I was game on listening, it wouldn't be taking all of that nest and putting it over there.
and the other good thing is if you buy it, it's going to appreciate in value. So if you ever do need money out of it, you can always sell it too, which is, they do a bunch of land, Hood River County does land swaps and stuff like that. And they're blocking it up. They've been doing land swaps with SDS.
The river gets a lot of tourism out of their timberland too, because they get little motorcycle clubs and mountain bike clubs to build trails, and they have one of the best trail systems in the entire
Yes.
300-mile region.
Yes.
I used to drive up there from Portland weekly. All my buddies show up. We eat groceries, we eat food at Hood River, and go up to Pine Bluff, Kingsley Reservoir, and Post Canyon, and
Yep.
Not investing any money in the trails because the groups are doing it.
Yep. And so that goes back to that conversation about we have a bunch of trails that the new buyer may not want to put up with those people and might want looking to sell it. Where do we put our value looking into the future? Because I can tell you what I'm faced with every day is that farming on the west side of this county is not profitable. And it's not going to be profitable. Even with the price of food going up significantly. You just don't have the land mass west of the Klickitat, in essence, to really make it profitable. And so you can't afford to buy anything. You can't buy ground to farm it anymore in western Klickitat County.
Because
So-
your ROI, it would be abysmal.
It has
Would
a
be
negative-
worse
it has a
than the
negative
DNR.
number.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, likely would be a negative number.
It's called tax write-offs, yeah.
Yeah.
But if we're honest about that change in the west end of the county, we have to start planning for that's the inevitable change. And what do we want that community in that area to look like in the end? You know, what are those community values going to be? And dear Lord, even stuff up in Glenwood is selling now for prices that are mind-boggling. It's a beautiful view. It's $1 million view.
So to me, I guess I could say it, I can see where the return on investment would be good as a long-term strategy. Again, I don't know that you get the public to buy off on it, which is gonna be an interesting one.
Well, you're gonna have to weigh the, how much.
Or,
Because there's risk
or-
associated with it, and we're not private sector, we're not,
or you're.
I can invest my money and take the risk and the return. And but the question with us would be, how much, what's a reasonable reserve to have that is,
Right.
super safe because we need it, but how much is that we could
De-risk.
have some risk, so that we're
Well,
not
and I
totally
think
risk
going
averse.
forward, as opposed to, right now we're talking reserve fund expenditures. We could put future revenues in that fund, whether it be over there or over there. And when you get those revenues, you just earmark them in that business model. You can take a little bit of revenue or reserves now for that, but earmark for future purchases with future revenues.
Well, I wasn't expecting us to ever have future revenues that are good,
That's-
that we're slapping
what are these?
millions of money away. But again, though, if I do
Well, yeah, but you add a couple of these things and you could be adding $1 million or $2 million a year by the time you're done with that.
you could be adding $1 million too, but if you're getting a 7% ROI on $12 million, you're also looking at $840,000, which is
Well, that's a,
a lot of money.
yeah, but if you take
Versus
your
zero.
whole, if you take your whole 12 mil and wrap it into trees and all of a sudden you need an emergency reserve, your money's all tied up somewhere and you're gonna take pennies on the dollar from selling it because they know you need it in a hurry.
But if
I'm
you're,
not gonna take all of the emergency
No.
reserve and go there.
and technically we have our emergency reserve, we always have to keep what, 2 million or whatever it is in that one. So you have that one, but this is the other pot.
If we're gonna sit on a bank account, I would like the bank account to do good work, but I also want to make sure I can dip into the bank account. So I think that's two pools. One's bank account, one's
Right.
investments.
And then the other question is if we start buying timberland and we're managing timberland and we're showing that we're getting an ROI under timberland, that gives us leverage with the state to say, we have 20,000 more acres that you're either gonna let us start managing ourselves. You can keep your 25%. We'll manage it.
Is there any way to get the state to I guess I'd say swap your land. If our trust land is landlocked, can we do a timber trade where we'll give you that piece, give us this little school piece over here
I
so
was,
that we can get to it?
I was,
If it borders something, if we bought into there and now we have something that borders us, hey, trade us 15 here for our 20 over there.
We move stuff around.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, they,
For those
Then
very
we can take
reasons.
into account our own land back.
yeah, and so that's another thing is we could start looking at blocking up where we know our timber ground is. I made a map of all the little parcels of our timber ground. And so we can, and then if we start strategically purchasing other grounds around there that come up for sale, Weyerhaeuser's selling. Jay McLaughlin's buying stuff up on track D right now that he got out of the state dollars that just got authorized. He's gonna get 1,000 acres thereabouts. So you've got the community forestry process too.
Here's a question. Is any of the timberland that's in Tract D and on the Yakima Nation, are they gonna be able to ever have any say-so on whether you can log that or not?
The nation.
Because I don't know that I'm too interested in spending my dollars on land that
No, I don't,
somebody could tell me I can't do something.
I don't think we would be looking at tract D property.
Right.
We're
Well,
looking-
you were going there and I was trying to,
No, my thought would be is we would be looking at properties that have multiple values, that have community values, that we want to remain as timber ground, that we don't want somebody like Weyerhaeuser just ruining the wildland urban interface on good tree growing ground that we know we can make money.
Mr. Dave, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Not putting you on the spot, but you've been here for 8 years. What do you
For how
think
long?
what do
Is
you
it
think?
8 or 80?
80.
Oh, 80. Okay, yeah.
What do you
I thought you said
think
80. I was like,
a safe number, I wouldn't say a bare bones minimum, but above a bare bones minimum safe number of liquidity cash reserve is absolutely needed. And if we went below that, we would be idiots.
there are some models out because other counties have the same.
Right, I'm just looking at ballpark. I'm not looking at anything.
They usually, like most people's reserve policy is they want to have at least 20% of their annual, as far as for cash flow and
Of the revenues?
of their expenditures,
Expenditures.
so that you can, that's, we're much, much higher than that. And we do.
You're saying so 20% if we're spending 70 mil a year.
Well, no, I'm talking about the general fund,
Okay.
and we're a little different because we have other that aren't in the general. We have departments that other counties don't even have. So you'd have to include those too. So if our general funds, 17 million, so that'd be about 3.4 million would be 20% there.
See, that's what I was.
The question would be is, I'm not sure, we have dollars that we put, and I think we could undesignate them as emergency reserve. But the county for the last 25 years has been putting money into an emergency fund. That's about 6.2 million of that 12.4. I don't know that you can redesignate it as, if you wanted to have a lower.
So
like,
theoretically, you can leave the 6.2 and take out.
take the
other.
red, right, is totally
Right.
just, it's, we have 12.4 million that it's been in long-term investments at right now, 11 basis points, which is 0.0011.
It ain't 11 or something.
It's about $11
Yeah.
on
That's where the $46.
the $46 comes from. You could, but obviously the other stuff that is not that, you could invest it in something and we haven't had need of it. We haven't, we just roll those over.
Right, it's just, to me,
And there is, the
I think-
argument would be is we are in a unique point right now in this county, in the West End with SDS, that's gonna be once in a generation, that if we wanted to make a sizable investment in some good timber ground, now would be the time, because it's, you know, if you'd said a year ago, it's like, well, they're not gonna, you know, they're buying stuff, they're not selling stuff. So we would be competing with them to try to get good ground. That's not the case now. And there may be, with the existing management, they might even be, like, they're gonna want their value. They're not gonna discount it.
Yeah.
But they might let us kind of pick, you know, for some community values that they might get some, as long as they get paid, I don't think they care.
Like I said, if I went this route, I would kind of want to, rather than, I would like to keep it in a region, whichever region we decide for that, so it isn't block here, block there, block there, block here, so that we can have some future development in it if groups want to create trails or mountain bike stuff or whatever, versus block here, block there. But yeah, I'm all for savings accounts, but I'm all not for putting all my eggs in one basket.
Right.
But you got to make money on your savings account, or you shouldn't be in the savings account. I have $2,000 in my savings account, which might be more than some, but I don't have money there because it doesn't make money. So one in my pocket, there you go. That makes money. That's $26 right there. I paid 16. That's return on investment. So if we need to put some of our,
Of course, it'd also be worth 14 at some point in the future. I mean,
well,
unlikely, but
it could.
it
But
could.
it's about ready to be sold for return on investment. And then you take that money and you diversify it into something else. We need to buy sawdust and glue, and then we can make our own 2x4s by crushing
Yeah.
sawdust together. But no, my point is the money you have should be making money, and if it's not making money, you're not using it
You're
wisely.
not being a true fiduciary of your.
Of the people's savings account. So I think you do need to keep that emergency reserve, and if that's 6.2, boom, 6.2 it is. Let's have a discussion about making money on the people's money so that they can get a return on their investment.
And the people will be all for it until you have a loss. And I think I'm taking the PUD, and the PUD had a very aggressive, investment strategy.
Yes, we
and exactly. And it paid dividends for years, where we had no rate increases for a decade because everything was paid for out of this return.
And then there was one big one that went, whoops.
And then things didn't go well, and who knew, their power plant was, cost more to operate.
That's what I said. And if we were going to do this, we would need to get our financial numbers in order. For me to sign off, I would need public support. I think some groups can be supportive if they knew we were going to allow trails and hikings and whatever. If there was going to be return, and we would need to present that business plan to the public for their support, for me to be supported.
But again, you're going to be picking the west side of the county where the timber is valuable, as
I'm
well
going
as a
to be.
safer asset.
I'm going to be.
And the people of Goldendale are going to say, well, if you're going to build trails and do all this over there, why are you not buying this and building us trails?
Because there's no money in that.
That's
Until
That's a
somebody can,
much less
until
safe
somebody can show me that there's money in that and there's return on investment, all I'm doing is spending $6 million on a piece of land to put a trail in. I'm not getting any trees off it unless somebody can show me a $6 million piece of land that we can actually harvest before 30 years from now. Because I don't know that you're going to be able to harvest trees in 30 years.
up there.
Anywhere in the state. I think you're going to start having states saying, oh, no, we don't allow tree cutting.
Well, Seattle is running the state.
Get it, and that's my point. We'll just import our logs from Wyoming.
But it's also, it's an asset and you better, or I'm gonna sue you.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's a takings. I mean, you can't, it's a public asset. And if you want to appropriate it for some
Right, but they
other
don't tell you,
public.
right, but they don't tell you you can't cut it. They just find a monarch butterfly.
Right.
They use it for habitat, and now there's 2 butterflies in your acreage. You're gonna need to get out of your chair because your
I
wheel's
know.
way under there. But then you can't log on your land because of the monarch butterfly. So that's another.
That's
risk.
part of the risk.
Right, that's the risk as far as burning down. I'm not worried about, you just harvest that. You know, you get beetles in there, you go harvest it, but, you know, if the state somehow finds some critter that lives in there, now you can't harvest it, nobody's gonna buy it from you because they can't harvest it either. And now you're just sitting on more trust land that you're getting nothing from, really.
And I know what the West Side, as I'm sitting here thinking about this, I know what the West Siders are gonna want us to do. Well, at least some groups, they're gonna say, you need to purchase the ground within, that was part of the white salmon agreement when SDS was gonna flip out all that property along the white salmon and flip it to the Forest Service. That's where they're gonna want us to put it. You don't remember that? As
Yeah,
part
I
of
do, but
the 93 plan?
I wouldn't doubt it if they say, yeah, buy some over there, but you have to buy some here and give it to the Forest Service.
No.
But the
Right.
understanding needs to be, it is like it's a trust
And it's gonna produce.
and it's gonna produce. It is not, we are not in the business of buying conservation land. Believe me, there's 50 million other
Right.
entities doing that. That's not what this is for. This is to generate return on investment, a revenue. Okay, well, I'm open to the discussion. I have some risk aversion
Right,
just
so do I.
because.
Like I said, I'm not sold.
Because it's, you know, again, I was taught we don't speculate with the public's money. That's what I was taught, but that's for the private sector to do. And so we need, but I think, you know, 0.11% return on investment is
Not doing due diligence.
not, no, as far as I think we can do better than we should. And if we can, we should.
And we should, and whether it's that, fine, or if it's some other idea where we actually
Right.
get a return on investment, fine.
I'm trying to
It's
think.
a solar farm.
You know, in all reality, yeah, I was gonna say. at least there's
Kidding,
return on
joking.
investment. I would put it in the tumbleweeds, but, if the county wanted to invest in their own solar farm in the middle of nowhere, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
I hope you know that's gonna be in the newspaper.
That's fine. I would fully stand behind the statement.
Sorry, I think timber is a better investment than solar.
Well, solar, you only gotta come up with $2 million and the feds will pay the other 100 million.
I don't think that's accurate.
Not accurate, but close, you know.
I don't even think that's close.
They'll cover half of it anyway.
Okay, I do have one thing, if what the time we have left, as far just to bring back up.
I got a question, Chief.
We had an earlier conversation, probably about a month ago, about the property in Wishram Heights with that is inside the urban area of Wishram
All right.
that is zoned open space. And we had some discussion, and I thought general consensus on at least moving forward with that starting through the process to rezone that. I think the planning department is kind of put anything having to do with rezones on hold because of the discussions we've had the last couple of weeks about the rezone in
Yes.
Trout Lake. That it's, you know, because the discussion has been centered around, if all our comp plans are out of date, then we basically can't do, if we're gonna consistently apply that, then that means no, we would not entertain any rezones anywhere in the county. Is that accurate or not?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the one in Trout Lake wasn't an official, we're not gonna do it. I thought we were having a public hearing.
No, we're having a public hearing, but it's a,
With
but we
that-
have, there's a pause on that.
Right.
And does that pause extend countywide? I think
Well, I
they're
don't know
hoping
if
for
there's
some
even a
direction.
Pause. I didn't know we had a pause. I thought we were still having a hearing on whether.
Oh, no, we are. We have not.
So I would move forward on all rezones everywhere until we've made a decision one way or the other.
And every rezone has its own circumstances and
Right.
situation. You're looking at, Wishram, which is within the Columbia Gorge National Scenic Area, little pocket there that we have no ability for growth, versus Trout Lake, which has its own sub-area plan.
Right.
So it's apples and oranges, of course. But the question goes back to, is zoning dead? Or is, local land use planning dead? And if it is dead, then the only way that won't be, and if you can't get through a rezone, like a comp plan, sub-area plan rezone, the only option is these one-offs.
Right.
If we think we can get through a rezone, then that's a possibility. Which we can, it's just how much does it cost? And if it costs $1 million to get through a sub-area plan rezone, that's a lot of money, of the county's money, versus if an individual or landowner comes in and wants to rezone their property that makes sense to the community where they're paying that money, what's better for the community? So
And to me, I wouldn't say that zone, it's not all about the comp plan, it's a community buy-off on the rezone. If the community buys off on the rezone, I'm in favor. If the community doesn't buy off on the rezone, I'm not in favor. Does it fit the community's needs? And if the people of Wishram showed up and didn't want to do this, then that's a different story. But I can't imagine they are.
Well, that would be the traditional approach to, I mean, there is criteria for rezone. You can't just, but if it meets the criteria, then, my argument is that you look at those one at a time. If it's consistent with then there's a reason to do it, go ahead and do it. But in a perfect world, you never do rezones. That you update your whole plan, the sub-area plan, those are the rules, that's what you do. You don't ask for anything else. If you want it different, do the next update cycle, change it, and the community has all their input. And that is how it should be done, but we can't ever get there. And so we're doing land use planning, and in a sense, we're doing local land. We're elected by the local folks, and we get input from folks. It's a different way of doing it, the way we've been forced into doing it, where these kind of one-offs where we're, because we are modifying things based on public input and what we're doing. I think the question for the planning department was this just a blanket at this point? For no rezones anywhere ever until the comp plans are updated, the sub-area plans are updated, or can we look at, do we continue to process these? Which my perspective is we do. I think each one of them is different and that we can look at them, but I think they're looking for some direction
I would agree with what you just said.
as far
I
as,
tell her to keep working.
okay.
All that land that we're talking about rezoning in Wishram's gonna burn this year anyway, so.
Well, it burns every year. It burns every year.
And it hasn't burned in two, so this is the
Oh, this
third
is the
year.
third year.
So I will be up there at least once this year.
Okay.
We got fires on that whole damn thing.
Has anybody heard where the tribe is on their building plans for Wishram?
I'm under the impression that they have submitted all their, for their building permits on all of it.
And they-
Like 70 units, I want to say.
It's
65.
Is this tribal stuff or is this underwater housing?
This is tribal housing authority.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not, this isn't
The
the,
underwater housing.
no, underwater housing. the
That's what it is,
replacement.
though.
I mean, it's replacement.
It's
That's
replacement for housing.
right.
that's
No,
now
this is
required.
not core. This is not the core project. This is a different. This is the project they were going to build in Dallasport.
Right.
Did the Corps, I mean, I remember I went to a few meetings and the Corps was talking, or the tribe was trying to talk the Corps into, hey, we'll do it. Just give us the money and we'll build the additional units because you guys can't even get through it's a 10-year process to figure out, pick where you're gonna do it.
Right.
And
No, this is
they're
not.
the Corps
this
is
is
not throwing
not-
any money at it?
No, this
Oh.
is not, mostly because there was pushback, my understanding, because the core project is the 4 treaty tribes, and the Yakimas wanted it specific to, they wanted it to
They
be.
didn't want to have any other tribal members
No.
there? Oh, okay.
And so that was, my understanding is where it broke down, where the core said, no, the housing we're doing has to be available to all, because we're a federal agency and it's everybody, it's not. Is that the newspaper article? It's already drafted.
Yeah.
No, that was Zach Kennedy
The
responding to me.
statement's already online. I'm good with it. I'll stand behind it. I do have a question for Mr. Dave again.
Yes.
Tell me about dog pounds, county animal shelter. I'm sure it's been brought up in the past.
It has in the past. We've been.
What has happened with that? Tell me.
In the past, we have been approached, a few times about having dog ordinance, or more, having a dog catcher kind of thing and a facility. We have been asked before to contract with the one that's here that the city has.
It's no longer here, which is why I'm bringing that up.
Right. We have participated in the past a couple times with some helping, I believe, and that we do, but we've never made any capital investments. We've never really entertained having our own shelter or any of that kind of stuff. Because most of our citizens are unincorporated, live in the unincorporated Klickitat County, and
Most of the problem is in the city.
is in the cities, and it's really, we've always, our point of view, at least past boards have been, that this is really more of a city issue.
This is your baby.
This is your baby and you deal with it, and if we utilize some services, we should pay for it.
Right.
As far as, because we do get from time to time, if we pick up something out in unincorporated area and want to take it to theirs, then we should pay to use that service.
That was kind of my
But we're not gonna run it,
thoughts
set one
on it,
up.
where this is your baby, but if you need a little help from time to time,
Sure.
come ask and we'll talk about it then.
Right.
Okay. Just making sure. Mr. Greg, I had a question for you while we still have 4 minutes. I've been approached twice in the last week going, why does the county not take credit cards? Did we take credit cards during COVID last year for property tax?
So we do take credit cards.
You just have to pay the fee.
You have to pay the.
Well, that's what
I'm not gonna
that's
do
what
it.
I thought we did. And they had to pay the fee, and if they paid the fee, they were fine. So, all right, I'm getting that information.
Were they trying to use the phone or were they trying to use the internet?
I don't know.
Okay, so we believe we might have had a problem with our phone ID because we contract that, it's through Point and Pay. And we believe that somewhere along the road, our credit card debit, you can call on the phone and do the e-check option, but it didn't give you the choice to do the credit card, which it's supposed to. So we're checking into that. So if they were trying to use the phone, they might not.
There might have been a
had the
glitch.
option. What?
There might have been a glitch.
Right, and we
Not that
kind of
don't
were
think-
hearing, and so it is, yeah, so we finally figured that, because we're like, no, we do that. Doesn't- So finally, I'm like, well, I'm gonna make a credit card payment and try it and see what happens. And we tried it and we couldn't get to it, so we figured out kind of where it was. But we do, if you go online to your parcel, you can still use a credit card or debit card on the web page. So the web credit and debit is working. And then we have a link to the web e-check, and then we should take on the third-party vendor. You can't call into the office, and most treasurer's offices do
Yeah,
not.
your office won't take it,
Nope,
but
we-
there's other ways to do it.
Yes.
Right.
yes.
Okay, no, I just, because they're talking to me, I'm like, I thought we did, but, so that's why I wanted to inform, since it's happened twice now,
Yeah.
I have a
It could
feeling
be
you'll
the
have a
phone.
third, and I want to know the answer.
It could be the phone.
Why do we not do it in the office if we do it elsewhere, just curiosity?
Well, it's kind of a little bit of a fraud issue, and most other counties I've called around here recently, they do not take them in the office either with the machine. Just, I don't really have a really good answer other than it's mostly because then you can have, people can use their credit card in bigger offices for refunds and different, you gotta really ratchet them down, so we just have.
Do you guys have any kind of a handout in your office? So if somebody comes in and wants to pay by credit card, you go, no, we don't, but here's a sheet. You can go do this.
We do, and we put it on it's on the back of the tax bill.
Hopefully I brought something.
I'm gonna have to get skinnier, you're gonna throw around the other way.
Well.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yeah, you bet. And that's a good, and like I say, that no, I think it's the same.
It's the same.
I think I know.
That's always happened.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more thing.
Okay,
So Wasco County is moving into extreme phase in Oregon. Red River County is moving into high phase. And so of course that scares us on what that means for us potentially. So I spoke with David Kavanaugh this morning, and we're at 39 cases in the last 2 weeks, and we have 2 hospitalizations. We have to fail both metrics, and the metric is 100 cases in the last 2 weeks and 3 hospitalizations. So
we should be okay.
we are
I think
okay.
100 cases, we've only kind of hit that twice, so.
Yeah, it's a pretty high bar.
Is it the 100 cases per 100,000?
No, it's
That's
100
100
Actually,
per in
100.
the past 14 days.
cases, not per thousand.
Per thousand, I know, because it's like, yeah, 100, that number is
Yeah, that's
hard
like
to,
3.
I don't know what ours is now as far as that many.
174.
174.
Yeah, okay.
That's where I was getting.
I didn't look, yeah, no.
So we should be good, right?
We should be good.
I did hear that,
They're-
So anybody even marginally, you can just hang on until after the third.
Don't go to the hospital.
Don't go, we don't want to go. Because then we get 2 more weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks,
Yeah,
actually,
it's
3
I
three.
weeks.
heard on the radio that New York is opening fully starting July 1st.
What he said.
Cruises are starting July 15th. Wonder
Hi.
if the governor will announce phase 4 by then.
Whenever you're ready.
So Jen and I both show we left off at 131, which is Fund 131.
Oh, okay.
And
Is this
so,
the same packet we had last
It's
time?
the same packet.
so we were going through the funds and where they were at. Jen has the list of where we are. So we should be on Fund 131, which is CDBG.
Which is a pass-through fund. By resolution, Public Works is responsible for that fund. And the fund's purpose is to pass through for community grants where the county is the sponsoring agent. And then it would be restricted by whatever grant is at that, going out that side. Any questions regarding that pass-through fund? Okay, perfect. 132, natural resources.
Yep.
Okay, so that fund is activities related to the protection and the use of county's natural resources. Restrictions are tied to the grant, not fund. Revenues are reimbursable grants, funds from landfill. And there is a county resolution tied to that fund.
And currently that fund balance at the end of March was 146,000.
Okay, affordable housing. That revenue comes from surcharge from the auditor's recording fees and sales and use tax. It's for eligible housing activities as described in the subsection that serve very low income households with incomes at or below 50% of the area median income.
And one thing, not to back up, I hate to do that. One thing, there is a minimum of, did we mention that?
Oh, I did
There's
not
a
mention
minimum balance on the 132 fund, which is the natural resources, of 100,000.
And just as a reminder, minimum balances are county resolutions.
Right.
Right. Quick question, Mr. Dave.
Mhm.
Has the housing authority divested its interest in Roseville?
No, it is in the process.
In the process.
If you want to make a smoking deal on it.
And so, yeah,
I
that,
can't guarantee a ROI. We had a lot of ROI discussions this morning, so.
gotcha.
Sure.
And that affordable housing fund is at 134 and has no minimum balance.
What do we normally use that for? Or is it just accrue until we have a project?
Yeah, that one, because I think there's, isn't there a couple different parts to that as far as the dollars as they come in and they have different, it gets allocated to different, some of it does go to WAGAP. The portion, and I may be misspeaking.
I don't think that this fund.
This fund
This
this
is
fund
the
is
one-
totally
the
in
fund that
our
goes to
control.
WAGAP, I believe, is the one that is a 600 fund.
Oh, is this?
That's what I was thinking.
Oh,
This
okay.
is our own fund.
I didn't bring my laptop with me today.
Right, we can, so those eligible uses, we generally let it accrue until we have a request, a project. We have funded, as you mentioned, the
Right.
Roosevelt, we actually paid the taxes one time.
Eligible
Out of that.
housing activities to be funded by the county.
Yeah.
By these funds are acquisitions, construction, rehabilitation of homes, projects within.
And the fund balance is 134.
Yep.
That's surprising that it's that high. Because we had spent it down. There may be some, like we pledged dollars that haven't been requested because I don't think the balance
And
would be that high.
That might be, I
Because
don't
that
keep
generally
track of
only
the
grows
pledge.
about 35,000 a year from recorded. Does that seem? Like I would know.
Well, I don't have the numbers. I had them
Okay.
yesterday, but I don't have them with me right now.
Of course, there's been so much recording going on.
I know normally we have about 6,500 documents a year, and not all of those have the key attached.
Right.
Most of them do. but I'd have to look.
Because I know historically we planned on about 35,000 in revenue into that fund every year. And it had built a pretty big balance in it. And then we were kind of sitting on it and we funded a lot of different things. And I thought we had pulled the balance down.
Mr. Slaughter,
Yes.
this last year, you may remember the county decided there's a new revenue stream. It's a portion of sales and use tax. The cities opted to have the counties collect the monies, and we still need to meet with the cities to design the program as to how that money is spent. So I think the increase in revenue is largely due to that. The treasurer started putting that in that fund maybe mid last year.
Okay.
So we're just holding funds for the cities for now, is what you're saying?
No, the county the county receives revenues. The cities had the option of basically pooling their monies with the county, so we had a larger pool of money to work with for affordable housing, and then we'll get together and make decisions on how that revenue is spent. So we're working in partnerships with the cities on this.
So then, again, to clarify, I think what I'm hearing is these are our dollars, the cities have their dollars, and we might work together to fund the project.
No, their dollars are mingled with ours, but when they're mingled, they're kind of our dollars too. Some of these dollars are not their.
Like
That's
30
not,
grand isn't earmarked for Golden Dale, 30 for White Sand.
no.
Okay.
So we have to
Work out a deal.
We have to work out a deal because that was, and the reason was that maximize, the cities could have went their own way and just collected their own and had it directly remitted to them or through, and they could have had, but the highest rate of return was to have the county do it over the whole thing, and then we'll all share the money. But there's no expectation that the revenues that are generated out of Goldendale have to only go to Goldendale. It's the group is gonna have to decide how to distribute those, and we may decide it all goes to Goldendale this year. Or, yeah. What's that?
You can go to Vision. I don't.
And Pigeon and white salmon.
White salmon, they're calling for affordable housing.
Yep. So that does explain why that balance is so high. I had forgotten that there was new revenue coming into that.
Okay, thank you.
And now David's here.
And now, yeah, he's what? Well, you heard, it's probably the natural resource budget fund balance that like peaked his.
Not his own.
Got his attention.
Okay, Fund 134 is the Trial Court Improvement Fund. It is exactly
What it sounds like.
yeah. 135 is communications, it's emergency management
I'm like
fund.
flood control.
Let's see, it's for dispatch services not funded by 911 funds, maintenance and operations of the countywide radio system used to fill in the gap left from 107 and 127. Revenues into that fund are real estate excise tax, solid waste fees, and interlocal agreements.
And the fund balance at the end of April or March was 901,000.
136 is indigent defense services, Superior Courts Fund. There's a resolution tied to that one, and it is what it says it is.
And indigent defense is, the fund balance is 219,000 at the end of March.
How much do we usually spend on that a year?
You know, I don't know the annual.
I was gonna say, that was gonna be my question, so good.
Well, our contract is,
That's a different fund, I believe.
I know not out of this fund, but but I think that's important because this makes it sound like the state is funding, that they fund indigent defense, and they don't. The bulk of it is we fund with our own revenues. It does not come from the state entitlements. But in fact, I'm curious the fund balance because right, how much churn is in that fund? Because
I can pull some numbers together, and that would be, I mean, I got that on the parking lot.
What are you doing over there? My book is gone. My budget book. I could have looked it up myself. Never mind.
It's an omen.
It is an omen. Somebody put it out. Here, let me blow the dust off. That's the horse heads right here. Come on.
But I can pull, I just have.
No, I'm just
What I
curious.
have in here though is just a monthly, kind of the balance as of the end of March, so I can put some numbers together. And
It was actually just a test to see how impacted you are.
yeah, today is.
Right.
I imagine the expenses are down because we didn't have court most of
Right.
last year, and that might attribute.
That
to
why that balance
stuff.
is so high.
Because without the courts, they don't use the indigent attorneys until, right? Pretty much.
Okay,
The fund
137.
balances may be artificially higher than they historically are
That's my
because
point.
we're not spending money.
Okay, Fund 137 is Public Health Fund. That's state grants, federal grants, fees, entitlement, landfill. There's a minimum balance of 100,000 in that one. And that's to provide health services, environmental health services, public health services, and substance abuse prevention and treatment. 138 is also a public health fund. I haven't seen activity in that fund.
No, 138 is for the DDA or whatever,
Yeah.
mental health, thank you. And that fund, we don't use really anymore because that money goes to Skamania County. I believe we have a contract with them.
They
So-
provide the service, we get more money.
Right, and so that all happens, so we collect the mental health tax, and then that goes into a fund, a 600 fund, and then that money goes directly out, and half of that goes to Skamania, and half of it, I believe, goes to comprehensive.
How long has Skamania had the 138, the developmental disability? How long has it been?
It's only
Not that-
year or so.
Yeah, about a year or so.
Yeah, like-
So before a year or so ago, we did our own, or we just didn't have it?
we returned the dollars, if I'm remembering correctly, the state provided this service. So we just,
And when I first got here, the 138 is a new fund. I would say maybe in the last 4 years, because it was all in 137 and it was confusing on what was for where and
right.
so on and so forth. So we built 138 at some point. I believe when Kevin was still in the health.
When Barbara Fuller was.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. And so that's where that has come from. So there is no activity in 138 right now. 137 has the minimum balance of 100,000. Obviously, at the end of the year, we were below that. And the landfill money came into there, and they have been getting their revenues pretty consistently lately. So we'll be curious to see where they are in April. But they're at 500, the regular public health 137 is at $573,000 fund balance at the end of March. And
Understanding
back
though
the
that
loan.
we did their annual allotment out of the landfill got dumped in the first quarter.
Correct. And the loan got paid off that
Oh,
they had
okay.
borrowed. So they're at zero. They have that available to them. I believe we did it. I can't remember how long. I want to say either till June or somewhere out there. I'd have to pull the documents up, but they have the line of credit available to them if they needed it, but they went paid because they had cash. They paid that back. We've settled all that. So the balance on that's zero today.
Okay.
If we're moving into this new way, do we need to keep Fund 138 or can we put it into a?
I think that's a question. I think that's a question that we need to ask. Yeah, I mean, I believe that 138, the monies that are in there are for mental health. So I believe that they would need to stay as for mental health type things. That would be a question that I think we need to work through with the health department specifically as to what those dollars are earmarked for, because I don't think that they can just go anywhere. But I do think that as a question, there is the 138 fund balance is $124,000. So I don't, yeah, I would assume it.
And so question, since we're doing Skamania now, is this dollar amount just the dollar amount it's going to be?
It's been static since we've been,
No
because
more in, no more out.
so the mental health
It's
has that
legacy
tax.
dollars
Yeah.
sitting
So when we did the tax, there's a tax on the tax bills. So every month it's getting money dumped into, but and that is a 600 fund. And so then once it comes in there, it used to be coming into 138. We would take a portion of that mental health money and it would come into 138. But when we signed up with Skamania,
It's all going there
it's
now.
all
So
it's 50-50. So it's going to them and to comprehensive.
we have dollars that we need to figure out what we want to do.
We have a
There's
fund,
likely, there's 138,000 or
124,000.
124,000, but that's all
Probably
painted
restricted.
string.
Right.
Yes,
Mental health
that's,
money,
yes.
It shouldn't be just sitting in a fund.
Right.
It should be used.
ROI.
Right. I'm sure it has to go to mental health.
But it has to go to
type
the, right.
things, whether that be in the jail or here or there in the community or whatever. I don't know.
Discussion probably to have with Aaron,
That's
because,
what I said.
it's set up because of the developmental disabilities, and I think it covers mental health as well. As when cleaning.
It'd be interesting if there's any of that, if there was any general purpose dollars. Because sometimes we front load we put,
I don't believe there's no, I don't believe that that's what, because see, I think that's why 138 got created, because that money was coming into 137 and it was all getting all kind of messed up.
and then
That's why 137 got created, so it doesn't have any general purpose dollars, so there is no, I believe, and again, I
It was
think that,
created with funds out of 137, but what those funds were in 137, I don't know, but that's where the money came from originally.
right, because
I just want to
think-
have as much flexibility as I'm legally possible to
Right.
have.
And then
With the
public
dollars.
health moved from the general fund over into its own fund several years ago.
Right.
Yeah, health, it is kind of bounced, so there is.
I mean, it's not a huge amount of money, but, and I don't know that I'm opposed to if it's
Getting
supposed to
the-
be for mental
I
health.
was gonna say, I would like to get the people involved in that to see if they have recommendations they would like to present to the board. So
Okay, Fund 139 is the landfill gas improvements fund. There's a resolution tied to that. infrastructure projects related to economic development such as sewer, water, and electric utilities with joint oversight by the county and the PD. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Only that there have been no projects last year, none proposed for this year so far.
These are only in county land projects, not city ask for help projects.
I don't think they're restricted to, I think no, I'm trying to think of.
The last project I remember this money was used for was the Bickleton water system, I
Right.
believe.
But I'm trying to think of, have we used money out of this fund in a municipality? Have we done a
I have
grant?
quite an extensive history. I can look back and find out.
Because I know there's
I don't think I think it's anything in the county, in the
Right.
cities or.
I know of a new building that is gonna have trouble hooking up to the sewer line, which is why I'm asking.
The
No.
entity would usually probably come
Yeah.
and present it.
I would like to have.
I think that
call with
seems
the
perfectly
entity.
fine.
I would love to talk to the entity. Continue.
What's the fund balance?
The fund balance is 62,784.
No,
Not enough.
not enough.
Yeah.
Ask again. Try again.
139.
Oh, landfill gas
sorry.
fund.
No, my bad. Yes, that's the cash balance because there's investment.
Because it's investment.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, it's like,
No,
what?
I told you, I'm like, so it's about, it's 918 plus 62, so it's probably about a million and some change.
Okay,
Or just under a
that sounds a little
I
worse.
I wouldn't have been asking if it was 62.
No.
Okay.
My bad. I was looking at the green line on my
Right, I know,
sheet.
you're all about cash.
I
I was
know.
wondering if I lifted up my sheet and looked at the next one. I'm like, no, I'm looking at the right
You have the right number. Yes, there's an investment on
Oh,
that.
I don't have those.
one. This is the old packet from.
Oh, I have to go
weeks
get
ago.
my old one.
And Lee does a good job of keeping the money invested, so that's one of the reasons why sometimes the money rolls into the cash, so it's all, Lee does a good job of
We
keeping
try
it
to
invested.
invest everything we can and make the most we can.
Yep,
Make our 11 basis points.
yeah. Yeah, it might be 12 this month.
2 cups of coffee this month. All right. Not Starbucks.
Go say McDonald's.
Yeah, McDonald's.
Yeah, $1 for a large coffee.
Well, I'm having a meeting with some of this entity later today, so.
Okay, don't make any promises.
I've never-
Okay, 140 is the solid waste fund. Contracted with Republic Services for the provision of landfill services. Fees, grants, there's a minimum of $100,000 there by resolution. There's RCWs also tied to that fund.
And the fund balance in there is 111,000 currently.
142, yours, right?
Yeah, 142 is, well, yes.
REIT.
REIT. That is a fund was established in the beginning for the treasurer to get the records electronic.
Remind me, read again.
Real estate excise tax affidavit or real estate excise tax.
Eventually I'm gonna have that, but
And that's,
No, there's.
it was originally used and Danny used the original funds to put the website together so that the tax information was on the web. Then recently it went back and it's now a fund that I manage with the assessor. So we work together on the dollars for REIT type activities that would help. And the last thing that we purchased with REIT funds was a server. So the server for Ascend, the taxing software was getting old. And so we actually used it to purchase the server. We tried to use the REIT dollars for one-time type expenses. We don't have individual small things. So like if we wanted to do some additional work to the website or change some of those things, then we would probably tap into for improvement. We wouldn't use it for ongoing monthly costs. I do believe that there is like $700 a month, I think, that comes from the state in order to do these projects. So I think we spent, like I say, the SQL server was the last one that we had purchased with this.
what's that gonna cost?
What did the server
Yeah.
cost? I want to say it was with licenses and everything, like 25,000, 15 to 20,000.
Not as bad as I expected.
102,000.
Where does the other, because that's the REIT tech fund, but the REIT that goes to the capital, Where is that?
That goes into capital, so that splits out and goes to 303.
303, okay.
And if you,
This is a money from the state. It's not part of the REIT. This isn't the split of the 50-50. That is 303 and 135, I think, are the two funds that goes to. So 135 gets a portion of that, which is communications, and the
then
capital
303 is the
gets it,
capital.
yep, at the same point in time.
Since we're kind of talking about website, I want to ask another question. What did we spend when we redid our website here recently? Rowena? I'm not thinking we need to start from scratch, but we need to expand on the platform we have. So I'm just trying
I
to
would
get
be,
I don't want to hold you to it. You can give me the wrong number.
I want to say like 50,000.
Okay. But if we were going to do something and expand, we could use these dollars.
No, these dollars are for real estate excise tax type stuff, so
Technology.
technology. So
Oh,
we're using it for the web to get the tax dollars and the legal descriptions and it. So like, I had a conversation with a gentleman who called in the other day. A lot of people see the mapping part out there.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, you need to do the mapping part, then you need to pull up the treasurer's webpage and you can see all the, oh, and we are working on looking, like, one of the things we're looking at is changing to a different platform for all that information and putting some, adding some pieces to it. And so we would use those monies to increase the web, what's available on the web for the taxes and the real estate and that.
So
whole
it could be
process.
used for website just.
For that portion
specific.
of it. And then Krista, and it's managed by the treasurer and the assessor. So Krista and I, you know, when we come up with projects, we would put them out there. If there's something that we could do to streamline, we just went through and brought up Simplify electronically. And so if there was needed money that we would have needed for that, we didn't need it, but if we could use it for that or things for doing the real estate excise tax process, which is the transfer.
So it's definitely restricted funds.
It's restricted to that kind of thing, but I mean, it's not like it's got to be too, it's kind of, you know, it just has to be in that kind of area.
but if you're upgrading the mapping system so that it's integrated to have both sets of information, the assessor's information as well as the real estate information.
We would, Krista and I would have to kind of talk about that and see, but yeah.
Because I think Skamania County has.
See, it really depends on the systems that they have and where they're at. I mean, I did some stuff the other day with different pieces and, but yes, possibly that's something, or like what we're looking to is to possibly go to the Ascend web piece instead of the developed piece and kind of looking at those options. So like that kind of stuff would be something we would do.
Okay. Good.
I just double checked the landfill gas project list goes back to 2007. And everything on it has been in unincorporated
Oh, okay.
areas.
Okay, 143 is the wind farm sales tax exemption fund. Is that your fund?
And that's the dollars for the renewable energy of tax that we reserve for the payouts if the renewable, if they get a tax credit essentially, and we have to pay that out through sales tax.
144 is fair
So
improvement.
what's the,
Oh,
before we
sorry.
move on, since I don't have my little sheet, what's the balance on that fund?
The balance on here is 0 because I think it gets transferred to 626. So I don't have the balance
Okay.
with me because I didn't print all this out all the way through the 600s. Because we used to have it in our 100 funds, but I think we moved it to our 600 funds
Right,
because we don't, we're pushing it out to the,
What percentage would you say ask and would get their money back? Do they all, or do some of them not?
Some of them not.
some of them not,
Surprisingly,
but yeah.
you'd think if
Most
you,
of them do though, and
I mean, those wind folks know which projects they have and where they're coming from and how they're going to do it. So, I mean, we've paid out, I don't have it with me, but I have a sheet where I can show what we have tried to pay out.
occasionally they go, whoops, and we get to keep the money.
Well, I think they go up through it from the intention at the very beginning. I don't, and I think that's the hard part. The hard part is sifting through all the pieces that were there. Like, if you remember, We missed the landfill gas renewable project because we thought it was wind related and it was renewable energy. And so that one was one that we had to pay that I believe the PUD received the money for on that. Because it's renewable as the sales tax part. So we reserve, what we have is we go through the NAICS codes of the vendors and we have a handful of them that are wind, and then we take a percentage of that and put it to reserve.
And I'm assuming solar would qualify for this as well?
You know, I'm not an expert in that. That would be something we probably should look at and see. I have not really read. This is kind of one thing that Glenn got set up and I've just kind of continued.
Because there's different percentages, because that's been part of the frustration of it, to understand how much we need to set aside in the trust, because how they do it, their percentage of the tax credit they can claim out changes. And so it's like, well, to the point where, you know, we discussed about anything that was related to a potentially one, we need to just park it over here because I don't want to spend the sales tax, then have to give it back.
Because that's what we're really trying to do, is we're trying to not recognize it as just
Actual
current-
general fund,
general-
current use dollars.
Yeah, 100 type fund
Right.
revenue. We're trying to make sure we kind of set it aside so that it's in a fund to where when we have those come up, we pay them out of there instead of having to just pay them out of current expense.
So if we don't know the answer with solar, we're just gonna park it over there, just. to be safe
Likely,
for now.
because it's can get up to almost, I think, even as high as 90%.
I will read up on I'll be honest, I have not really read the RCWs of exactly how. I mean, I work with the Department.
Because I know there's different,
different.
because the state, which that's what it is, it's a credit on the state sales
Yes.
tax.
And
Like
we
if they
have-
use, you know, minority business, it's one thing. If they use union labor, it's they get
Over
another,
there, gets
if they get
another,
this,
yeah.
they get this. And we don't necessarily know that when we get our check, you know, when our sales tax disbursement comes to us,
Correct,
it
they
just
don't
says-
identify it,
you know,
right.
whatever, Lund Hill Solar Farm.
It actually
So-
doesn't say Lund Hill, it says the vendor that worked on the Lund Hill sales farm. So that could be, for wind, for example, Siemens is a wind distributor.
Right.
So you would have to go to the Siemens portion of that and take that portion of the revenue to the NAIC code. And then you have all the wind tech firms that are in there and you got to take their portion and move them over there. So that's where we came up with this, that we use that code to try to identify what's wind specifically, and that's what we reserve. So we will have to work with them to try to
Solar.
figure out where solar is and how that would be impacted.
Because I don't think it's necessarily the same as wind.
Yeah,
There's some that are, you know, because I know there's some things as far as on the panels, if they were manufactured in Washington State, it's one credit.
It's
If
one
it was
number, if it's out
US,
there.
it's a different number, or if it's not, then it's not, maybe it's a different number again.
right.
So it is.
And we're set up to actually, we pay the state, we just write them a check. So we don't net it out of our sales tax number, so we just keep getting that. Then they send us a letter and say, hey,
We need,
this person's getting back, and then we send them a check. Well, that way there we can stay whole on where the pieces are. It's just an easier record
do you
keeping.
think, is the state doing the same thing?
I do not know how the states. I
Because it'd
mean,
be curious, because they're going through the same formula, they would have to. And how, you know, can we learn anything from them? Or do they just don't care? And it's, because in the overall scheme of their sales tax receipts, it's a little teeny piece, and maybe they just pay it out of current revenues as they come in.
I think you hit the nail on the head. That is one piece. That this is a program they have that is not, it's not as, in the grand scheme of the state of
They
Washington,
don't, it's not.
it's, yeah.
For us, though, it can be a huge, because
Yes.
our, you know, we can get these huge swings in our sales tax receipts. Because on a project, you know, they will get a, you know.
Yeah, if they're doing an upgrade or if they're doing something
Right,
like that.
and
yeah.
it's like, and then we, oh, wow, look at this extra, you know, $300,000 we got this month. And then it's like, oh, but 285,000 of it was actually money you're gonna have to give back. So don't spend it, go put it, park it over here, and then when they ask for it, and maybe they'll forget to ask for it. And then after 4 years or 5 years, whatever the end of the.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I
period
mean,
is.
and I think there's different ways, you know, one of the things is we are reserving that. So let's just say that a project doesn't, so that kind of sits in your reserve. So, you know, our goal is to try to make sure we don't have a hit to current expense for 80,000 or 100 or 200 or $300,000, right? We're trying to manage that. But then on the other hand, you have to balance that up. We could get money over here that we don't have any, trying to piece that together. So it's worthy of going through, and I have it down on the parking lot items of something that to kind of dive into.
And it would be interesting, right now it's wind stuff, renewables. But we have enough history now that we could see things that have aged out. How are those performing? Are they, what's the percentage that we're actually having to get back? For every $100, are we actually returning $100, or are we only turning $80, or are we returning $120? I would be curious to know.
Yeah.
Not that you don't have anything to do.
No, I've looked at it before.
That's a heck of a project right there.
No, I've looked at it though in that way of trying to figure out, okay,
Well, we know
are we
it's
really
easy.
reserving
We know
what we're
what we
trying
paid
to
out. We know
accomplish
what's
or not?
gone into the fund.
Right.
What's the difference between them?
Right.
Is the fund balance growing or is it declining?
Yeah, it's maintaining right now because I think we paid out this last several, because when Glenn was here, I think the last in December, we paid out the last one about that time. So
Well, if it's maintaining, then we're hitting our
I
mark.
think we're,
guess.
yeah.
We're doing it right.
Okay, Fund 144 is fair improvements. And the funds are provided by the Dooley Estate dedicated to the operation of the fair, except rodeo activities. There's a resolution
Except
trying to do
rodeo activities.
That would be the Julie funds, I would imagine.
Yeah, that is the Dooley fund.
How much do we get out of that?
It was the lady passed away, and she left right around, by the time all the things got settled, it was right around like 1.3 and some change $1 million to the fair. Not to be used specifically, the will does specifically state not for the rodeo, for the fair only.
Interesting. I didn't know that was in the will.
Yeah, no.
Was
it's
she-
specific.
I would assume she lived here. What area
She,
did
well, she
live?
lived at the top at the Dooley, at the,
Top of
I
the
call
grade.
it pig farm, but
Oh, top of the grade.
the top of the grade right there. And those windmills that are up there were on her property, and then it kind of went out, and she was,
Pretty extensive.
Yeah.
Estate. This was a small portion of the estate.
Yeah.
When did she die? When did this happen?
this happened in probably it started, I think, in maybe like the end of 14 or 15. And by the time we got through all the attorneys and everything got there, the money probably came in 16-ish, maybe. something
Yeah,
like that.
that sounds about right.
And it came in different pieces because they did like a main part and then there was interest left over and so on. So that's kind of where, and there was an amount, how it got split up amongst the parts, the people that were.
You're
in
saying
that
it
section.
started at 1.3 and yet it's at 1.45 now, so it's
It's mostly been invested. So, I mean, I think they're getting a little bit of money, but it's not, it's about that 1.35 somewhere. I can go back and look and see exactly what.
no, that is.
But there's no other money that comes into this. Although I did notice there's a receipt on here, so I was curious what.
Did this creation of this fund lower the amount of money the county actually participates in the fair? Or everything stayed the same and this is just bonus
Additional
money over there?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, this money has been used for, like at the fairgrounds, they did the remodel of the barn, the Bruce Cameron Livestock Barn, and when they did that, they got a grant for all of the stuff, and then they bought new pens for it, and I believe that the pens came out of this money. So they try to use it for capital type things that they're doing to improve the facility or the fair, yeah.
Like the fair board essentially has control over this.
The
money.
fair board is
If
the one
wanted
they-
to spend it on something, they could.
They don't have,
No,
ultimately, we have control.
you have-
This is county money.
It's county money.
They,
put a budget in just like they would.
right,
with
they
everything,
ask
and then
for
we
it,
would have
we
to
say
approve it.
here.
We would have to approve it.
Right, so if
Like
they put
the
in a budget
trustee.
and said, hey, we're gonna spend 1.3, you would have to, you could approve or deny the budget request, I guess. And I have a whole file on this because I was the treasurer when this happened of how it was and whether it should be in the county or not, and state auditor information and PA requests and all kinds of stuff, so.
It's just kind of weird to me that she left it, I guess, to the county to over.
She left it to the fair, but the fair is a division of the county.
I guess, yeah.
Right, that's the end of the special revenue funds. Next is the debt service funds. State auditor says that these should be used to account for and report financial resources that are restricted, committed, or assigned intended to expenditure for principal and interest. That services funds should be used to report resources if legally mandated. And it can go on there. We have 1 and 201, that's Greg's fund.
And and that's where we pay the Pioneer building out of. We get money that receipts in from the Dalles for the airport. There's a loan that comes through there. But most all debt is paid out of the debt fund. That's the state offer. That's what they want you to do. They want you to pay it out of your debt fund, whether you're a school or a county or whoever. So this is the fund where all the debt payments come out of.
Okay, and then the 300s are capital project funds. They should be used to account for and report financial resources that are restricted, committed, or assigned for expenditure for capital outlays, including the acquisition or construction of capital facilities or other capital assets. We have 4 of them. 303 is a generic capital improvement fund. It's where the 6-year CIP and county facilities improvements come out of. There's a minimum balance of $100,000. RCW attached to that fund. Revenue I found was REIT.
That's where the that's the money.
That's where the
comes from
REIT
tax.
Okay.
So the 0.5% or whatever that we do goes 50-50 to there and to their 135 fund.
Okay. 305, Communities Capital Improvement Fund, activities related to improvements at the.
Can we, before we move on,
Yeah.
just for, to make the point of, when we look at our 6-year CIP, that's the fund that when we look at all the capital projects that are on our list, the fund balance, we run out of money to fund, we've been slowly pulling, we're doing more improvements than the REIT is, although maybe this year it'll get a bump. Maybe that'll help reset it. So that is, it's important in that we're going to have a discussion in the next couple of years, because the lines cross as far as all the things that are on our plans for, a new this and a new that. We run out of money to pay for it out of 100% out of REIT. And that is the only dedicated funding source for those, unless we use landfill dollars or something else to do that. So it's.
Yeah, and that fund currently has a balance of $376,000.
Right.
And it looks like, my guess would be that the REIT money is probably in the area of about $35,000 a month, or was in March, so.
If we're spending $50,000 a month on average and we're getting 35 in
Right.
income, there's a future problem.
Okay. 305, capital improvement communities, activities related to improvements at the airport, expanded to account for projects to promote community and economic development. There's 2 resolutions tied to that. Public Works manages these funds.
It's $7,000 is the balance.
306 is the radio system. Countywide public safety radio project, capital expenses related to the construction of the radio system and dispatch center. There's 1 resolution tied to that.
And the balance in there is $573,000.
307 is major projects. That's where the county services building, the new building is coming out of. There's a resolution tied to that.
And its balance is $277, and it goes, we're pulling cash and managing that budget.
That is the end of the capital project funds. Next would be the treasurer funds, the 700s.
Actually, there's 401, the 400 enterprise.
Oh,
These
proprietary
ones right
funds.
here.
Okay.
So let's go through 401 and then the 500s. So go ahead.
400s are enterprise funds, and the SAO has noted that these funds may be used to report any activity for which a fee is charged to external users or goods or services. Enterprise funds are required for any activity whose principal revenue sources meet any of the following criteria: debt backed solely by a pledge of the net revenues from the fees and charges, legal requirement to recover costs, and an enterprise fund is required to be used at the cost of providing service for an activity, including capital costs, must be legally recovered through the fees and charges.
So what do you use 401 for?
So that's where the Dallasport
Dallasport
water or Dallasport wastewater facility is located at. And we did have the gun range set up in there, but it wouldn't support itself, so it had to come out.
So 402 that's on this list isn't.
It's not, it got, when we did the annual report, it has a cash balance in that fund, but we need to finish the journal entries to get rid of the cash that's in that spot. So, but the 401 fund of the Dallasport wastewater facility is set up for that, and that balance is 308,000 that's in that fund.
So is that where we put the connection fees go in that?
Yeah.
It's all
Everything,
stays together in that fund.
But the thing is, though, I don't know that does the connection fees get paid to the county? Don't they get paid to the PUD and then all that
And then
money
the
gets remitted?
PUDs.
So there's only like once a month or every
But
so
they do
often.
the
There's a,
true up of
right,
the-
and it's a messy
Yeah.
calculation.
It's ridiculous.
Was that the long-term plan for us, Dallasport wastewater and PUD to have this little thing? Or was it to eventually turn it over to PUD and get it out of our wheelhouse?
Well, we couldn't, because the bond payments on it, which the last one's this year, or actually, that's not true. There is another little.
There's a small one, but the
There's a
Public
small
Works Trust Fund
Public Works
dollars,
Trust
it
Fund.
got
It ha-
funded with Public Works Trust Fund dollars and State Revolving Fund, which, no, I don't think either one over there anymore. But my understanding in talking to Susan, that those funds, we had to own
Own
the
the
project and
project.
everything through the end of, while the loan was out there.
Right.
And they were at 0%, like 0.5% or something, very low interest, so it never made sense to do that, but now the project isn't.
Right, that was my question.
Right, and so the
What was
idea
the
was-
long-term?
Would be that the county will divest of it because we don't want to be the wastewater business. And so, but we couldn't until the
We couldn't
last
until
payment.
next year-ish.
But
Right.
that's out there, so we will look at, I don't know what we'll have to do as far as what kind of public process, if we can, I mean, PUD is not the only show in town, I mean, somebody else could,
Yeah, how do you do that?
exactly.
Get the public funds to the PUD, right? So
Right.
how do you divest of it?
How do you what now?
If you can't just gift it to the PUD, how do you divest
Well,
yourself?
the PUD is a public entity.
Yeah, so we can to a PUD, and we could to another, so there was interest about a decade ago when the water district was formed. They could be a recipient of it, potentially. There was some grave concerns then about because you run a water system doesn't mean you can operate a wastewater system. And but they technically would be eligible. They're eligible today when we do it. And that's
So-
something we're gonna have to work through.
By devaluing ourselves of this, are we giving it away?
We would give, well, that would be a discussion to have.
Isn't there also the potential for major upgrades that would prompt this discussion before significant upgrades to the plant were made?
Right. And that's gonna have to all be part of that conversation with it's a huge asset.
Right.
And that's why it's a public asset and it has to go to another public. So you're giving the public's resource.
And this is a real challenge at the end, and Brenda can speak to it from a balancing perspective of the end report.
Yes.
402 is really
So
difficult.
it sounds like this is gonna be a mess that we're gonna have to discuss again next year.
Yes. Potentially, or although we can continue on, I don't know that our agreement with the PUD, I don't think
I don't
it's
think that
the
has
easy-
anything to do with it. It's more of the direction. I think I would say that when the budget was presented from Public Works or on different things, I know they have projects that they're wanting to put in there that Rob had brought up. I do believe that the rate structure needs to be relooked at as far as supporting the system. I think there's some pieces.
That
there.
work is going on now as far as the
Yeah.
rate, because the rate, we can't change the rates without having the data. And so that was, we started that last year, which I think we'll have that
We'll come,
information.
yeah.
And were looking at expanding the service area to include Murdoch, because the recommendation is Murdoch needs a wastewater, we did the studies to look at its own standalone versus, and the most economical was to tie it into the existing system, but it's not in the service area now. And so that has the service area has to be updated. And so that's ongoing right now.
Build out there.
Right. So, but ultimately, I mean, it's like my personal opinion has always been, I don't want to own and operate a wastewater plant. That's not, we don't have any other ones.
Well, we're not gonna be getting any revenue from it, but we're gonna be the ones paying to upgrade it, so.
Well, we don't necessarily, that's not, that's the discussion. It'll be the negotiation when we say we go to with the PUD is their ask is going to be, yeah, you fix all this stuff, do all these upgrades, spend all your money on it, and then we'll take it. And then you'll give it to us and we'll operate it with all this improvement. There's going to be some give and take there, because we're giving you a $20 million asset, not 20 million plus another 500,000 for upgrades. So that's the deals, if that's the deal. And, you know,
But
ultimately,
as far as your thought process, the only people that are eligible is Dallasport Water and PUD.
yeah, unless another entity could, I mean, the system was operated, we owned it, but it was in the early years, it was operated by Bingen, the city of Bingen, because their operator that ran the wastewater plant in Bingen split his time doing that one and doing one at Dallasport. And so I suppose it's conceivable that a municipality could, although generally it's like they don't want to be, why would I run a system that's not in my jurisdiction? So I don't know, City of the Dalles.
Well, that's,
Come over and run it.
that brings up another question.
I mean, it's
I'm
possible, but
assuming
it's,
Dallasport has no intention of becoming a municipality anytime soon.
if
Has there
I
been
would
any
give
talk?
them a wastewater plant as a parting gift, I would support that. That's my personal, hey,
You're reading
you get a
between the
free
lines.
wastewater
Well,
plant.
then that's kind of, so
I mean,
my
it
question
could,
is, has there been talk, is there any movement down there of becoming a municipality? Could this be a carrot?
the first question would be is, I think there's state requirements on minimum population to incorporate. I don't know what those numbers are. I don't think they meet the threshold now. But it could be, it's clicking. The flag. Come on, that's good. But yeah, it would be, I mean, if they were a municipality, although the question would be, do you want to gift a $20 million asset to a brand spanking new,
Could save you money in the long term.
well,
Not when they come with their hand out.
yeah, I know how that works.
Okay, I'll take the word.
Kind of how it works now. And so I don't know that that's viable. I do see it could be long-term. They could be where and then is it 1,500?
Wasn't it like that's the lowest population?
Under Washington law, an area can be incorporated as a city if it has a minimum of 1,500 inhabitants. If within 5 air miles of the boundary of a city with a population of 15,000 or more, the area must have a minimum of 3,000.
So
But then they're classed certain cities, just like we're classed.
it says
now.
inhabitants. That didn't say
Yeah.
human inhabitants.
What do they got now? Like 700?
Dallasport? So maybe if you included Dallasport and Murdoch.
We might know more after redistricting.
Yeah. Probably
I'm just
like
going off, I'm trying to remember the vote
not,
tally.
not
You
1,500.
figure that only,
Yeah.
80% voted and.
Residents are different than voters, though.
Right. I was just trying to do a
Yeah.
ballpark in my head.
So I don't think they're near, although if you see a big, growth in Dallasport, they could easily meet that in the not too distant future.
I don't think they're too far necessarily away from
But
it.
I don't necessarily want to keep a wastewater plant,
No. I
give them later.
We've
Yeah.
went over there, so.
Okay,
So those are the only two enterprise funds. Well, they're not even two. We only have one, but that's the other one that we're doing with the gun range.
so do we know, not to harp on Dallasport, because the connection fee, I mean, to me, my monthly rate is different than I pay a connection fee is for future and, it's for capital stuff. And the other, my monthly rate is for M&O.
I think that's a conversation for the building. I mean,
That those
because
really should
I
not
believe
be,
we just get a deposit once a month of how all that comes in. So I don't know. I think that's part of the thing with all, I mean, there's just a lot of parts and pieces. So that would be a question that.
well, and again, it's only relevant if I'm running the system and I don't want it. So I don't really care.
Yeah.
So never mind. I answered my own question.
But yes, your connection fees are usually used for capital and in doing all that
Right.
kinds of stuff and everything and are separated out and usually kind of
In its
parse them
own-
out of their own
Right.
bucket so that you don't.
So that when you're doing an improvement, I'm
getting an
paying it out of
operating credit.
this, I'm not,
Right.
I'm not paying.
You're trying to pay it out of that. But,
Well, I know who it's getting paid out
Yeah,
of.
I know, that's my point.
And they are tracking their connection fees and utility fees separately.
Okay,
Job
If I can
cost.
get out of writing that check, I'd be happy about it.
Public works. Yeah,
I don't want to write
I don't know about PUD, but public works.
that. Okay,
I want to be done writing the check.
right.
Okay, 500 funds are internal service funds. These may be used to reporting activities that provides goods or services to other funds, departments, or agencies of the government. This is where our vehicle and equipment rental funds lie. So we have three of those. 502 is a vehicle rental and replacement that's ran by the board. This is funded by department transfers. 504 is the ER&R fund. It's public works funds. That's where they have all their equipment rental rates charged out. They're self-supporting by the rental rates and supply charges and maintenance fees. 505 is the senior services vehicle rental replacement fund. That's funded by landfill and grants. That's what I could find. And then there's a 506 information services rental and replacement. I wasn't sure, but I thought.
506 we got rid of that, yeah.
Okay.
Because that was the computer that the auditor said we couldn't do. Is that correct, Linda?
Yeah, so they were not billing for their replacement, like when you buy a computer to charge the department for, or charge your time, and they didn't have an accountable plan. And so that's the same principle for the gun range, and so those got moved over to the general fund.
Okay. And then we have quite a few 600 funds, which are all fiduciary funds, but I don't think we were gonna dive into those.
We were not going to. I don't think, there are a handful of those that do impact, like the mental health one, but the money comes in and goes out. So it's not, it goes to the places where it's supposed to go that you guys have resolutions to. So we had only went through the under 600 funds. The only other fund that's out there, which we did talk about, and she brought up, is the 700 fund that we use for residual investments, and that's the other one, but it's above the 500.
Could you just point of information, the county timber tax account, so fund 643 and 644, the tax reserve, is that the fund that the
So
You
the
get
way
the
that-
timber tax goes in and then you
No,
apportion
it
it.
doesn't.
from there?
No, there's a reserve amount that's required by the timber tax, so they give us a reserve amount of what the reserve needs to be. So we have to have a timber reserve that comes
What
on
do you
the
do with that?
calculation sheet. Huh?
What is that for?
I do not know the answer to that. I can ask and look into it. When I do the calculation, I take, so the way the timber tax works for the treasurer's office is we get the timber calculation from the assessor's office and they go through all the gyrations of it and they list out which districts all that dollars will go to. And then we have an amount that says, okay, you gotta have this much in the reserve, and then we just put those amounts in there because that reduces their levy. And that's what's in the six, I think it's six, I don't have my fund list, I think it's 644.
Okay. Just wonder what its function is.
I'm assuming if there's less timber tax, then maybe they would dip into the reserve at some point in time, maybe, I don't know. It's been very consistent to be the same since I've been doing it.
Okay.
And you fund your reserve first, then you fund tier 1, then you fund tier 2, then you fund tier 3. Since I've been here, we've always actually had excess of the 3 tiers, which then spreads back over tier 3. So you don't increase your reserve. So that's all we had. This is kind of finishing up what we had started at the previous deal. And so we had, we weren't sure 100% how long that would take. Just about half the time. And so one of the things that we had was some expense discussion. Brenda has some items if she wants to cover those now, and I have some items that we could cover too if we want to do that.
What order do you want to go?
You go ahead. Nope, you go ahead and I'll.
Still Mr. Cannell's chair over there. He's like, he'd have a desk too.
Great.
Thank you, Jim.
Yes, very much. Thank you for allowing me to get off topic to fill my head full of other. You got my name on it. You spelled it right.
Hard to do.
It's hard to spell my name right.
So this is gonna be at a high level. Let me go back to it. Well, one thing was I was thinking I was all on the 20th, so I kind of pulled this together quick. So it's gonna be high level and we'll start off questions, whatever through. Before anything comes to our office for payment, whether it be payroll or this chair things, is that right? Yeah.
So you are just.
Yep.
slow.
No,
You are.
no. I was like, Jen, did you, is this a trick? Okay, all right.
That's a little lever on the right.
Yeah, I know, but if the gas cylinder is broken, it'll just go down again. It's like, okay. We have to have a signature authorization from each department. We send this out usually in December. Some directors and electeds want certain people authorized to sign both or just one. So that's just kind of where we start. And we, this kind of keeps us on track for people spending money out of other people's budgets when they're not authorized to. Except we found one slip through, didn't we, recently? It's one of.
I guess I have a question.
Okay.
People spending money out of other people's budgets, like cross departments?
Yeah, so I'm not authorized to spend out of your budget.
Right.
Yeah, that's happened before. We stop it.
So like with the
I'm assuming on
coronavirus,
accident.
Sometimes not.
with the coronavirus funds, they all went into 125, which is your
Yeah.
fund, but was essentially being administered by Dave McClure for all of those small business loans. They would generate the invoice batch to come for payment, but Lee would have to sign off on it.
Right,
So you have
'cause-
to authorize their expenditure from your fund.
Right.
And that's fine, and that's why I agreed to that. There's been money spent out of my O&M and other things, and another thing we need to look at is the affordable housing, that email from yesterday, I was looking at it.
Mhm.
So it's listed in Kayenta as a commissioner's fund, economic development pays it, but it's listed in public health for budget workshops. It's like,
Well,
wait
that's
a
because
minute.
it started out with the commissioners and then it went to Public Works and then when Kevin retired, it went to.
Public health, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
okay.
And then it went to economic development.
Right, but I'm just saying
Yeah,
that,
that
I just saw
changed.
that when I went through that whole thing yesterday, and it's like, oh, we need to like look at this, so. So for the most part, people try to stay within their own, but sometimes if they think the project's authorized and they're in charge of the project and the money is supposed to come from somewhere else, they'll just send it through, and yeah, it's like, hey, you've got to go get so-and-so to sign off on this. Well, why? Because you're not on this. That's their budget. So that's kind of our check and balance there, whether it be payroll, whether it be AP or whatever.
So how, just for curiosity's sake, I mean, your folks see they have a pretty good idea when they come in, but how do you not check each one of those to be sure?
Unless it's flagrant, it goes through. It's just like what happened on my O&M years ago, you remember.
Right.
There was a
I mean,
project.
obviously you do as well.
And I didn't monitor my budget reports, or I would have caught it the first time, but it went through 3 times. And the statement made to me, well, how am I gonna pay for this? Well, you generate the invoice and the batch and bring it to me and I'll sign off on it too. Well, that's not gonna work. Why? Anyway, but that's what we did with the 125 fund. So somebody else is administering it.
More to this that I just.
But the custodian of the fund is the one that really needs to have their initials on it,
Right.
acknowledge it, because I don't want to get caught in the middle of that web.
Right.
Plus, legally, pursuant to statute and bars and all of that, that's how it's supposed to work.
Generally, if it happens, it's, 2 numbers have been reversed.
Yeah, right.
So like
So it's a
5,
mistake.
5, 2,
Right,
1,
most
5,
times,
2,
but there's been times that not. So,
Then.
and this is one of the times with 125 where we made a specific exception and spelled out why and how. Because I'm not gonna allow that to happen. Just not gonna do it. So, okay. So the budget, I used yours for an example, just 1 page. These budget reports I have on the bottom for the commissioners. Not everybody's copy has where the budgets are located. These reports are run after period end is completed for payroll because it pulls in the prior month's pay period. So if I ran it, if it was run January, the first of the month, it would not include the last payroll. So say the payroll's on the 10th, payroll gets run, the ACH gets sent, the next day, period end is done. And then all of those numbers are put over there, and payday's the next day. So after period end is done by payroll, then these reports can be run. Sometimes they're not run that same day. Sometimes it's a few days out there, but, and as you go through, I picked December on this one. You'll see that how much is left. Usually in a month, it's, of course, it's simple math. You divide the 12 months, it's 8.33%. So per month. So if they're over, they're over. If they're under, they're under. And the line items, okay, so salaries and benefits, those always have to stay within what they're budgeted. But if you go over in a bottom, in any of the other bars codes down below, as long as your bottom line's in the black. Now, if you're,
So how do we, because, and I know that's not
Mhm.
news to me, but that has been can be frustrating for the board where, we put numbers in those, in the budget process. And unless we're paying attention, we don't really get any notice, because again, things run as long as that, like, we've given thought to so much for this category of thing, so much for this category of thing. And if the department head blatantly just like, I'm just going to reallocate all this stuff and I'm going to double the number in this line. And as long as I don't go over my thing, then it doesn't really come to us.
So. we
And I
don't-
know this isn't, you're really, I guess I'm just.
Well,
I'm just
it kind of,
commenting
it
more
is,
than
but it's
anything.
not, because we don't care if the bottom line goes, so long as bottom line's in.
Right.
But the salaries, they're gonna run no matter what.
Right.
And
No, I'm not talking about salaries.
I
I'm
know, but
talking
I'm-
about this other stuff.
Okay, in between. So, say you have an expenditure that I'm just a hypothetical. So you budgeted for something, you're not gonna get it that year, or whatever happens, and something else comes in and you buy it, then yeah, you're gonna have one line that shows more money than the other, and the other's gonna be in the red because you didn't budget for it.
That's, I guess, what he's asking.
Yep.
That's what I'm asking is how do we, as the holders of the checkbook, stop somebody from using, I'm not gonna travel this year, so I'll use $5,000 of travel
Or
and
something
buy
else.
a printer,
Especially the printer that I asked for and I was
which you
told
did not
no.
receive.
However, if it's that much money, it's gonna come to you.
Well, it
Purchase
is.
order anyway,
Right.
but anyway, Jan.
So I've been over the last week developing a workbook with information from finances that I'll be updating monthly. It was the 20-minute report that takes me to run each report for each month. So that I can come up with a visual for you guys to see where everybody's expenses are in comparison to their budget.
So there's your answer right there.
So
Show
we
one
should be
before
able
you.
to catch it early on if that's happening and it's like
That's my
somebody
goal.
saying.
That's my goal.
Okay.
Because if it's over $5,000, it should come to us, but if it's under $5,000, we may not see it till later.
So when we created Jen's position to replace Glenn's position, Glenn's mantra was that accountability, department heads are responsible for all that. And to some degree they are, but when we created Jen's position and what we're operating under is, Greg brings the money in, expenses go through Brenda's department, but the analysis occurs in your department, which is Jen and I. And so she looks at the revenue and the expenses, and we don't tell departments how to spend their money, obviously, but we're looking at it with them. Last year, a couple departments ran out of money, and we would have caught that potentially sooner by having Jen run these reports and look at some of this, to work with the department to make sure they're seeing it as well. And so that's Jen's role working for you, is to monitor that so you see it and to know about it before it comes to you.
Right. Well, and it could, ultimately we are going, because, when it gets to be budget time, we look at the previous numbers. It's like, oh, well, here's what was allotted for that. This is the actual. Why are these numbers so different? Oh, it's like, well, because I moved this stuff around. And it's like, well, department heads, ultimately, that's a discussion between the board and that department head. And that's why I'm always like, put real numbers in real categories,
If you're
not
approved for that
not,
category,
right,
don't
not,
put it in.
I know I'm just gonna move this. That I'm gonna put twice as much in travel as I know, or training that I know, because I'm really this number down here isn't really enough. I've historically spent twice this, but I don't know. Put the real number in there.
Jim and I are looking, we're talking about common and other entities to have, for want of a better term, guideposts or monitoring. If something's up or down 10% or up or down 15%, why is that? I've seen organizations even color code that to a degree and focus on, red, green, yellow. I'm not saying we're going to do that, just so you can focus on what's varying up and what's varying down. Again, not to tell them how to spend it, but to watch the trend. In some departments, they have the expense loaded up front, they get the revenue later in the year, or vice versa. So sometimes there's a reason why they're way underspent or overspent at any given point. But
Well, I find just historically the I don't call it abuse, but it happens later in the year. It happens near the end of the term of the budget year because there's unspent. And people start thinking of ways to actually
Be creative.
Spend it or
be
lose it.
exactly creative, and that's not, you can return it. And
Yeah, so one of the
if you
other,
really need it, we'll give it back to you. But
one of the other.
that should be this board's decision.
That's right.
Not the individuals.
It is.
Not if we don't see it.
When we were traveling.
You'll get away with it once.
We've been watching some of the expenses I was prior to COVID when we were traveling. Some people would save up all of their travel reimbursement to use for their Christmas money, which really skews your budget when, according to the BAR's manual, you have 30 days to get reimbursed. And so we were out of compliance with policy and other, but I'm just saying.
It wasn't Christmas money. It was just.
If it's somebody that does it once and we see that it's happening, we'll monitor that. And I have reached out and called people and said, look, you have to get your travel reimbursements in. You can't just sit on them all year long and then scramble. And then in the, open period, we're doing a huge amount. And then they wonder why they go over budget. Well, they can't go over budget if they issue payroll because Kayenta has a restriction on that, which, I've come to you before about.
Yeah, our current travel policy says if you don't get it into us in 30 days, we don't have to reimburse.
Right, and that's per the BAR's manual, but I'm not gonna fight that fight unless, I'm not gonna fight that battle unless I come to the board first and have some support, because I need some guns behind me before I tell the director they're not getting reimbursed.
I've been doing mine every 30 days, but this one is now gonna be 60. If I do it 60, is that a problem, or do you really want me to do it 30?
It would be
I will do
nice.
what you tell me to do.
Well, every month is the best way to do it, and you have them separate. Each month goes on a separate one. Yeah, yeah. So
So
no,
I shouldn't be rolling them. Okay,
no, they've got to be on separate forms.
I'll redo this.
Sorry. January,
Martha,
February,
me.
March, April, they're all separate, yeah.
But if I turn them in every 2 months,
I
you want
would-
it 30 days, you got it done.
Well, if you've
I
got
think
it done,
it's
why
preferable.
hold it?
Do you need new forms?
Because little tiny check, I'm gonna need more.
Well, you can do it,
Little tiny checks are boring.
you can fill in the form. They're available on the share drive under shared forms and accounts payable. You'll find it. And then, well, maybe it's under the travel and travel policy. That's where those forms are, isn't it?
I have them, I do them,
You did handwritten, okay, all right.
I just need a few more.
Yours gets split between payroll and AP too, so,
Well, we always just make a copy though.
no, I understand. I'm
If
just
you want them in
saying
30 days, I'll do it every
that
30
that's
days.
part of why, yours is gonna hit in payroll and it's gonna hit in AP. So if you're sort of skewing
Yeah.
your budget in two places, not just in one, if you delay.
Yeah.
Now you're gonna tell me to start cashing my payroll checks.
Yes,
You're
No,
not
I'm gonna
direct
tell you to start
deposit?
cashing your payroll checks because.
Are you not direct deposit?
No, I got 2 of them in my bag in there, I don't cash them.
Seriously? Well, guess
Sorry.
what? Accounts payable, that's what that person
All right,
does, is
I will-
she
I will
monitors
cash
that. And
my
once they're
checks.
60 days old, she'll start nagging you.
Checks are overrated.
She's nice, but
You could get direct deposit.
if checks are overrated,
I actually signed up for direct deposit, they just didn't do it, so.
Even he does direct deposit.
No,
What?
I was right on board with direct deposit.
I filled out all the stuff for direct deposit.
I don't wanna go to the bank.
It
Speaking
didn't
of,
happen,
what
so.
percentage of our employees
And then I just,
don't do
whatever.
direct deposit?
very few.
3, there's 1.
Yeah, there's, I was
I
gonna
meant
say,
to go
there's
over afterwards.
handful.
And bring it up, and I just haven't done
just a
that.
handful. And I was, yeah. so
I'm like,
that's-
that'd make a good Christmas fund if I just collect them all until Christmas.
What was I just talking about? Expense reimbursement.
I got you.
Mhm. Yeah,
Just gonna have to start.
Be careful.
I'll behave myself.
you can cash them. and put
You
them in-
are, oh, I was like, what?
No, reset.
So,
They throw it across the river type of a rock.
Yeah.
so,
Ten space.
Talked to the
I'm better now.
finance committee,
okay, good.
not to make that
Just not,
presentation, but the expenses takes a lot of their time, because you can imagine. But in terms of the budget, and finance committee talked about this, sometimes boards, not this one, sometimes boards focus on travel and travel expenses, and it varies
It is.
So, and then to go back, we always, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
That's okay.
All I was gonna say is add to the number of like Jen's part where she was looking at revenue to expenses and so on and so forth. The one thing that we will pick up, we had done last year and we started late in the year because of COVID, but we were doing is we were taking the revenue and expenses for the general fund by department. And I will present that to the finance committee at the next meeting. So we'll have 4 months. We did it in January and it was just such a small number. But where we're looking at it for is not the revenue versus expenses, but we're looking at it for the revenue or what the cash impact is going to be. So like, for example, we look at it and say, oh, we're typically 90% of expenses or however, or what the revenues are. So we can kind of see an idea of where that is. So if we're short at the landfill, for example, and then we aren't going to spend as much, then those kind of things balance out. So you'll start to see that we take the general fund and we break it out by every department and just look at the gain and the loss, which is another part of it. But we use kind of the same numbers in the treasurer's office for a completely different purpose of cash management.
And I think I'm glad you brought that up. And I think what Jen and I are looking at is budget to actual, budget to last year, monitoring that, looking at both pieces, how they're spending their money.
Well, and one of the things that I mentioned in our last workshop about these reports being different than Greg's cash reports is like the fact that we run these reports after payroll is done on the 10th, which puts the expense in the previous month, but the cash, Greg's cash report for the previous month isn't going to show
Right.
the payroll hit. So you
That's
really
right.
have to take the two pieces as a whole if you want the whole picture of where
Yeah, where everything is. And that's,
Go all cash. That would be awesome.
that would be nice if we budgeted all cash. I would like that, but that's a different discussion, right? Just saying. So, there's, we have an outdated AP handbook that we were working on before Kathy left to update, but that's kind of what we go by. We try to be very uniform and equal across the board in how we handle expenses. If it's an advertisement, it needs to come out. This next sheet shows you where these classification of expenditures are. Sorry, I didn't move on. So is it an office supply? Is it, communications? Is it your postage or is it, an advertisement? And so we try really hard and sometimes we have departments that disagree with us and we're not the most favorite people. They said, well, that's not where, this is where we could get off, Dave, to your point, is if they budgeted something totally under 41 and it's supposed to be at 42, they're gonna pay for it all out of 42 and you're gonna see that offset. Because if they're clearly spending something that's totally out of the category they're supposed to spend it in, I'm gonna call them on it.
Okay.
So
there is some.
yeah, and
Because I can get it in general out of the monthly budget report if there's, but that's pretty high level.
right. And I do have some transaction details posted out there, but I could do a general fund transaction detail and post out there too. Right now I have expenses and revenues. I have the VR&R transaction detail, don't I, Lee? Don't I have that on there? The VR&R and the 125
Yes.
for transaction details. I think Marty wants weed out there for transaction detail. So, I could do a transaction detail for all of the general fund and then all the other funds and put out there for you guys to look at or whoever wants to look at them.
You've got your big transaction detail there,
Do I have one on
Oh,
there?
yeah.
Okay.
because that's where I get all my.
I'm
others
trying to
are.
think in my brain how the tree
Yeah,
goes.
it's there.
Okay.
And I'm assuming these are posted on the drive they don't have access to.
No, you should have.
It's on the shared drive, under forms, monthly budget reports. So, but that's one
Not that
thing, if they,
exclude Commissioner Christopher. Fund
Well, there's one
drive.
drive I don't have access to.
super secret.
Yeah, it is. It's the top secret one. I forgot. I should not have brought it up. So that's the one thing, and it gets thrown out to us.
It only
Well,
goes to
that's.
folks that have direct deposit.
The forms for direct deposit are out there as well under the HR county-wide, if you want to go there and get them. But if somebody says to me, that's a common thing, or to our office, well, I budgeted under such and such. That's okay. From now on, we're going to pay it out of this bars code. And you will see that shift between the two, you know? So that's, do you have questions on these classifications, or you need to look at them a little more, or?
Thank you for that. That's really nice.
Yeah, I had no idea this
This
was.
is your wheelhouse, but each person should probably be handed this when they start doing their budget every
We
year.
provide it to the new people that come in, because this is available in the bars manual. So
I didn't bring the whole bars.
the bars manual printed out is about
I have a
this
printed
deep.
copy. And it's
Literally,
like
it's about this deep. Seriously. Yeah. So, you know, there's a lot more to cover, but like I said, I kind of threw this together at the last minute. I looked at your agenda yesterday. I was leaving early yesterday and I went, expenses. I thought it was on the 20th of May. So I kind of tried to pull something together, and
So are these, this is out of the bars manual, if that's where these categories came, so the numbers are the numbers they came from. Okay.
so we try to be fairly consistent with how, you know, things are charged. You know, if it's labor and materials, it's a 48. If it's just labor, it's a 41. And we also require W-9s. We require,
Charter of 20.
Oh,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, I
But-
better not see that one come across my, or anybody in this county.
So anytime the department needs to pay a new vendor, we have to set up a new vendor, and we have a process for that. They have to provide an EIN or a social security number. And so anything gets paid, we have something on file. It's not like we just, you know, oh, sure, you want to pay Joe, whatever, yeah, we'll set it up. No, they have to put it, they have to sign for it, they have to, yeah. So Jake probably knows about that. Go into a lot more detail when we come down and talk about the annual report more on my scheduled time next month, but so I don't know what else you might have questions on. I'm happy to address anything you have.
This is great. Thank you.
Yes, no, I'm good. I've been scolded enough.
I wasn't scolding you. I was just telling you how it was. If you have a guilty conscience, that's on you. That's on you.
And it really helps staff to, like, when I reconcile the budget, because I'm also projecting what are we gonna need, especially come that second supplemental. It's like, okay, I'm guesstimating, are we gonna have enough? Am I gonna need a supplemental? I don't wanna be a department, your department, at the very last, calling Jen and Rob and saying, I'm out of
I'm
money.
out of money.
That would be
That would look bad.
yeah,
It happens. There's been
Yeah.
multiple
Oh, yeah.
departments that have done it.
Yeah.
that'd be a bad role model right there. So, yeah.
We are not gonna do that.
And then you'd put your finger at me and, well, you've got to check in 8 years.
So.
Well, once it hits the expense side, it hits. Where it's gonna affect, if you don't cash it, is Greg's side with the cash.
Oh, that's all?
That's all.
Eventually, we cancel those warrants once a year.
Yes.
Yeah.
They do.
I've had it done to me before.
But the kicker is then you have to fill out a lost affidavit form, and you have to sign it and get it notarized.
I had to jump through hoops to get repaid, yeah, so.
I'll just drive to the bank for you.
Yeah.
So,
Or take him up the direct
Here's a question for you from last year, now that we're all finished off, 4,300.
How much did we save the county by everything? Nobody going to change, nobody like overall?
well, I don't know. I'd have
Is that
to,
something we can pull real quick to see like what our?
You'd also have to look at your 4,900s because registrations for conferences comes out of 49, and travel is the only piece that comes out of 43.
It should be that.
But doesn't other things?
I say it's someone that doesn't.
Yeah.
believe it.
I can try to have that information next
It
time.
should be a significant, well, true. But I mean, even just in ours, if you look, this one that you provided was run in December, so
That's
it's
what I
the
was
year.
looking, so I was
Yeah, there was a
looking at
huge
just,
unspent,
But then
and that's where I think a lot of our dollars were when we were looking at the cash balance of how that was coming from.
So the other thing that needs to be considered on the savings for travel and registration is the fact that everything was done by mail. For us, our envelope expenses just skyrocketed because everything had to go by mail, everything. So postage
so
was
postage was way up,
skyrocketed.
probably.
I'm not looking at it, but I would bet that it was way over what I budgeted. So that's again where, you know, there's circumstances that cause numbers not to be what they're budgeted. And there's a valid reason for it.
I think insurance was one of those last year.
Oh, yeah,
Everybody
Lee hit
was
us with
more
insurance, I'll tell you.
expensive.
Yeah, yours was, where's yours? Yours was over, I think, on it, yeah.
But a portion of that comes from 49.
Yeah, commissioner's insurance was
Well, it's a
6%
it's a big-
in the whole.
Lee, I got a question.
Yes.
Advertising on ours, what is that covering? Is that just covering the notices that we put in the paper or?
Yes,
We didn't do
anytime we put an ad
We
in
never
there.
went
When
anywhere.
we put that ad in for appointments.
Here.
We advertise for public hearings and different things like
Right,
that.
but is the stuff that we put in the legal
I don't go
section,
to-
It's all
out of
included. in
All of
that
it.
now.
is it only ours or if the planning board is having a meeting that's
That's
coming out of
theirs.
planning?
That's theirs,
advertising?
yeah.
Got it.
Or if you advertise on the web online, like I've done for my open position, like how many times I've done it.
Yeah.
All of that comes out of 44. Just because it's not newsprint doesn't mean that it's not
Right.
advertising.
Right.
Yeah. So, and a lot of times people get their 4,200 for communication and their leases, if they're leasing not leasing or purchasing whatever the phones. We've had people trying to pay their phone bill out of cell phones out of 4,500. That's happened. I don't know if anything recently, but I remember it happening a few times. I thought that's a stretch, but whatever. I said, no, 4,200. So,
Well, our stamps are 42, but they put them in 31 as supplies.
right, that's a common.
Okay, that
Clearly.
you could make it.
They just don't, you know, we're trying to be as consistent as
consistent,
possible.
right, so everybody-
So, yep. And I'm sorry I didn't have more to fill up the next half hour, but maybe Greg's got something.
Well, the only thing I have is if we wanted to, I could go through what I have started, which is the report for the general fund expenses, which I was gonna hand out at the next, but I was gonna bring a copy so we could talk about that if you guys would like to do that.
Oh, we got some time.
Sorry I didn't pick up all the time.
Oh, no, that's never a
Trust me, the
apologize
next
for that.
time I will.
Thank you, Brenda. Heather, that was real good.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brenda, or,
Heather and I'll have to share.
yeah. So. I can get back. So this was one of the things that we used last year. Towards the end, we tried to figure out a way to look at the expenses because one of the things that from a cash perspective and we're looking at revenues, I think we got to the point where we were going, oh, well, we're losing this revenue, but we weren't looking at the other side of that, which is, oh, we're not traveling, so we're saving some cash on that as well. And so we kind of got down to where we use this. I just put this together to show a 2-month period, but like Brenda said, she had it down, I think, did you say 8.33% or
Yes.
whatever, but
Mhm.
whatever it is per month. And so just to straight line that, but if you go through on the general fund, for example, in February, we had expenses of 2.4 million against our budget of 18 million. And so we can kind of see where we're coming. It's hard to see in the very beginning of the year, but we could see more towards the end that we were at about 80% of budget, or we were at, we could kind of see about where we were burning. And so this goes through every department that's in the general fund because that's the hard part. And that's where we really kind of were struggling, was trying to figure out how to go through and put a value on that. Because I think in the past, I think Glenn had said it was, was it 5% or Rob? I think it was 5% of the budget or something that we were, so it was like $1 million is what we had always kind of assumed. But we knew with the COVID that it was gonna be slightly different. And when we were trying to see where we were gonna park the ship is where it was gonna be. So this is something that we used. We did put it together in January. It just was so early in the year. It does, when you're at, 8%, it's like, okay, there's a long ways to go. But as we start getting out into the year, we're going to put it together for April so that we would have 4 months. So we would have the ability to kind of start to look and see where maybe some trends are going. When I looked through here, there wasn't anybody that was really much over the 25% if you looked at it for March. And so it kind of, but it's just too early from a cash perspective. But this is something that we used also with the expenses because there is the lost revenue, but there is some gains in what we are spending or not. And I suspect that that's going to continue to remain to be true. If we put a status quo budget together like we did last year, and we didn't, we may have left, I know I did, I left travel in there because we didn't know what we were going to do with travel. There may be that some of that left in there, or it's maybe getting eaten up in other expenses that were unanticipated. So I just brought this down as another piece to kind of go with the expense part of it. It's a document we've used before. Again, it's not newly created. It's just something out there, but our piece of it is really to look at the summary to see where it's at. So
Where are these? I mean, are you doing these you're doing them every month. Where are these available? Somewhere?
These, I just put them in on our, we don't send, I mean, what I was doing last year was I was bringing them to the board at the finance committee update. So I'd take them to the finance committee and then I would bring them to the board. Okay. So we can continue, we can start it. I did it in January, I think, in the very first meeting that we had. And we had a problem running the reports because there was some challenges getting them ran, because I think that was back when we were working on trying to figure out which one was the budget versus the actual, because I had to update the reports to get the 2021-3 or 5 or whatever that number was. So I think there was some challenges. We got them put together, but there just wasn't any meat to it at that point in time from what we were using it for. Because there's no, we were, from a cash perspective, we were good. But I think that's kind of where, when we start looking at, kind of back to my update the other day about the revenues, we can say, well, we might be about $1 million on the revenue side of the landfill. I'm just talking one revenue stream. But then when you look at that, then we have some dollars here. So that's what we kind of have to start to balance out, is both the revenue and the expense side from where we're at on our cash. But we're not doing what I think Jen is going to do, which is going to be a way better thing, is going back and looking at trending and making sure budget to actual and year over year and reaching out to departments. We don't go and ask them and say, oh, hey, adult probation, you look like you're getting close. We just use this and go, oh, we're using cash or something, where Jen's really maybe going to be able to.
We really need to look at more points in time. How they compare to this time last year, budget to actual, you got to look at a bigger picture to get those trends to see what has changed.
Because like if you look more accurately, how did they look at this time 2 years ago?
Correct.
Because that's the whole thing, is it's going to, last year's going to skew everything for a while.
Right.
For us.
And like in the treasury.
We should take last year out of the equation.
Just out, go back.
Before and everything after.
Like in the treasurer's office, we have banking fees that are significant, and they only come 2 times a year. So I mean,
so you're going to hit.
We're going to have a big hit in June or thereabouts, and then we're going to have one in December.
And then you can start to see things like Greg's correcting me if I'm wrong, and I think didn't the 10-year report show that we typically spend 94% of the budget, that revenue's 106. I mean,
right,
over a 10-year period. But when you look at individual budgets, if somebody's coming in at 8, you don't want them to spend all the money. But if they're coming in at 80% year after year, if enough departments do that, you have a contingency built in every department within the fund. So it's money that's tied up, or at least budget that's tied up. And when you're able to look at those kinds of things, I know departments had phones budgeted for 3 years and hadn't bought the phones yet. So either buy the phones or don't put it in your budget.
Right. Well, for me, the ones that I'm most interested in keeping an eye on are the ones that aren't really general fund, those things are pretty stable and steady. It's the ones that a lot of grant money flows in and out, and those are the ones that we get into trouble where
And that was,
they haven't gotten their reimbursements in, it's been kind of buried in there, and then the next thing we know, they don't have any money, and it's like it's like they've been on the float, so to speak, where it has masked what's really going on in the department. And I think of public health in the past 3 or 4 years, where there's so much and now I don't know what we're gonna do because it's gonna be really hard. The water's super muddy now because all of this COVID money got dumped into that department. And it's gonna take us before we really get a clear picture of what that department looks like as far as and maybe by the time we can get a clear picture, it really won't be an issue because I think there is more resources coming to public health from the state. Because in the new budget that was adopted, they recognize, I think that will evaporate over time, long term. I think we're gonna be back where we were, but I think in the short run, the next 2, at least for this biennium, they're gonna have more resources. And so when the COVID money goes, is gone, I think they'll still be okay. And so maybe but that's the ones that
and that's then on the cash perspective, those come along with this. I printed this out because I thought, because the general fund is so complicated, I brought it because I thought it was a good one to talk about. But it's interesting you say, you're worried about those other ones. I'm like, swinging.
Yeah.
But anyway, but those
that's the bug in your office. That's what it told me.
Yeah.
So
because the thing with the general fund is that you're talking millions of dollars that are over so many different departments, you can't really figure it out. So I thought, this is good. But we did last year also put together the packet with the graphs, and we started looking at their cash balances with year over year, which came along with this. And that was very helpful.
That was really helpful.
And I think it kind of is similar to your fund booklet, but it's a little different variety. I mean, in theory, in a cash county, the fund book and the fund balance and the cash balance should be the same, but we have this kind of uniqueness. But basically it kind of does show, you can see the health department and then they kind of tick up at the end. And so it will be interesting to get some more months on those graphs to be able to look at how that works, because you can see they get funded in January with their landfill money, just like we looked in the reports earlier. And then you can see them going down and down and down, and if they're not getting their grant revenue coming back or not, which I know they're working really hard on, and I know Aaron's trying to change that. So we will see that in those graphs when you layer 2014, 15, 16 right there, and you have them in different colors. It's easier to see kind of what you're at. So those will be coming, and those will start coming in April or May, I guess, next month, because we got to finish April. But we'll start those with the April numbers, because there will actually also be trends to be able to go with that.
I think when Greg and I transitioned after Glenn left, when we looked at public health, typically, I think they start to bottom out towards the end of the year, but we found that they had bottomed out a couple of months before then. So we were in that transition where we weren't, keeping those charts up. I think we may have, now Jen would see, Greg would see, something's happening because the trend is different. It just creates questions. Why is that?
Well, especially when you look like that, and I don't want to pick on public health, but it's the easiest one where if you look back over it's there in the trends where you see, they're here because in January they get their whole year's allotment, which who of us, if we got paid once a year, you got to be on top of what you're doing, because you're like, God, I got all this money. It's like, yeah, it's got to last you. But you'll see, the trend line, and they're getting their reimbursements and they end and then they start again. Well, you look at 3 years, here's 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and it's like the
starting balance is always
the starting balances. If the starting balance is always under from each year, that's telling me there's a problem. And if we're not, and it's hard to pay attention to it because there's so much is going on in that fund that and it's not, there's other ones like that too, that senior services is another one. There's this huge amount of grant and other money that flows in and out of that. And it's almost like it's hidden in the data of what's going on.
Well,
in
and
the
not,
fund.
it was nice to get a picture of them, because I do think even myself, when I put them together, they really did trend, they really all trended to spend, or their cash balance went in the same direction. So the revenues or expenses were all happening in usually the same way year over year over year.
Right.
And so you were able to see that. Or like the road fund, you could see, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, hey, and then it's $1 million more the next year and $1 million or however. I mean, you can see that on those graphs. And it was an easier way to see it, because sometimes this is a tough
Right.
one to read. There's
It
a
is.
there's a lot of information on here, but you really got to sift into it, where those pictures are a little nicer, where you can kind of go, oh, look, here's, this is the health, or this is the senior services, or whichever. And it's a little easier to kind of see the trends of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say, Commissioner Sauter, what you'd like to see, because Jen and I are planning, I think we mentioned this once, to come talk to the commissioners. We can't track everything.
No.
But if we know what it is you like to track on a monthly basis or analyze, quarterly basis, annual basis, then it helps all of us figure out what kind of reports to generate. It doesn't make any sense to generate a report every month if it's not telling you what you want it to. It's not looking at the things you want to look at. So if we figure out what those things are, then Jen can generate reports on a regular basis and keep you informed of that. Otherwise, we're looking at everything and nothing at the same time.
Well, as all things, bring me what you see that's smoke, and if you see a fire that's about to start, that's what we need to be spending our time on. But we all know we have department heads that are fiscally conservative, and there's some that aren't quite so fiscally conservative, but for the most part, the county, we've done a really good job of every year, like you said, everybody budgets a little more and they spend a little less, which is safe and good, and that puts money away at the end. And that's where we want to keep it.
We do rely on that ending balance.
We do. I mean, that's part of the budgeting, the balancing we've kind of incorporated that into and on the surface, when folks are like, oh, you're adopting a deficit budget, it's like, we have, historically, because we know what the history is. And so we've been comfortable doing that. It's like, I can overspend $1 million to $1.5 million in the general fund, because I could show 10 years that we're not going to spend that. And so on paper, you can put that in, as you look at what the actuals ended up, and it's worked. It's gotten a little more volatile the last couple of years.
Well, and Jen and I were talking, looking at the reports that Glenn was closed. We got smaller and smaller print where it says this does not reflect an estimate of ending balance.
Right.
Beginning balance. So people were looking for that. They think you adopted a budget that's out of balance.
Right.
And so find ways for us to make the implicit explicit so people understand. It's a choice to do that. It's not right or wrong. It's just a choice how we do it. Some entities estimate their ending balances and fill those in as beginning balances. So they adopt their budgets truly balanced.
But by doing that, though, in the end, it creates less people coming in to have to change it, because they build a little bit of a buffer in there. And as long as it zeroes out at the bottom of that page, everything's fine. And that's like, some of these state grants are going like, if it's not in this little dot line here, you got to go in for an amendment. Well, that's like a 3-month process, and it's micromanaging to the nth degree. And that's the last thing I want to do for our own internal departments. It's your department. You do what you need to do.
I would like to mention back in public health that their billing is, I don't know if it's up to date now, but Shelby worked with them to get their billing caught up significantly. And they were billing back 2 and 3 years. They had to get special dispensation from the granting agency to submit those bills that were way outside of the contract period even. So that also helps with your ebb and flow within public health, is how often that, or seniors or any of the others. I'm just using them because how often they bill and when they bill, and have they billed everything they can bill before the contract period's over. So that also affects when you look at your ebbs and flows, in your revenues.
So speaking of smoke, with their billing for 2 or 3 years back, we closed all that out. That cash is hitting us now. One-time cash, can we get, that's what I want to know, like, how much did they bill out? Is this a small pittance or is this
Well,
a
this
large
was
amount?
in the 2020 report. Shelby's been gone over a year.
Okay.
So I don't know when Angie's doing it.
But when we brought in.
That would be, but it would be good to know is where,
Teresa.
how current are we, that's
Right.
what we're supposed to find out.
And-
Teresa came in, they were 9 months behind. in billing.
Yeah, so I'm,
Again, near and near.
I know,
Yeah.
no.
right, so that's
I
out of my department. I'm just saying that that affects when you look at those reports. So the 2020, probably, I'm guessing the 2020 revenues for them in a certain period when Shelby was helping them and they get that money back would be spiked. Because that would be 17, 18, 19.
Right.
Coming in 20s and it wasn't budgeted for 20. That's all, the only.
So we've
thing.
we've got a revenue spike there, but then we've also got all the COVID dollars revenue
I-
spike. And so
Yeah,
how do
but
you,
I'm just
how do
saying,
you filter through that noise?
She's built the.
Teresa.
Teresa helped me here and showed, I think Greg's seen it, maybe showed that a spreadsheet, which unfortunately, it's not a spreadsheet, or the help the staff manage all of these different grants. So now Aaron can see it on one spreadsheet, the money that's coming in and where they're at on expenses and receiving those grants, where before it wasn't in a single place. Glenn had kind of started to put that together before he left, just to help them manage, which is why Aaron proposed that grant management software, to help them manage all of these moving pieces. So, spreadsheets are not the ideal answer, but in this case, it's better than what they had before.
Mhm.
Comments?
Nope.
You're just being so quiet over there.
Well, I talk too much, remember?
He's worried about those travel expenses.
Yeah, yeah, he's fretting about them. I'm telling him, don't fret about it.
Yeah.
No, I'm fine. You know,
I've never been more than 4 months. That's my worst. So.
if I have something, I will mention it. I do have a question about her request for grant management software. Was there any other, is that something that's only going to be able to be used in her department, or is there anybody else that seniors would be able to use that?
I would like to use it.
We were going to, I don't think anybody else did, I was gonna, she was gonna set up a demo from this company. Most of her counterparts in other counties are using it and actually paid for it with COVID dollars.
Right.
But it's fairly expensive for single department, so that's why we were at some point gonna look at it.
Well, she had it for COVID in there too, so COVID
Right,
dollars.
she could use for one department, but I think it's applicable for the whole county. We just had nobody else demo. I've seen the demonstration other than Aaron, I don't think, to see how it would work for other departments.
I'm just thinking it could help clean up some of the messes like you were talking about.
Well, and that's one of those things we have to figure out how to get the reports in a way. Like we should have known we were 3 years in arrears on some of these contracts. We had no idea because there was no way to pull it out of.
Well, it's all over there and Carla was there
I
and
know.
Lori had left.
Right. I
And
mean, ultimately, the director should have been on top of it and we should have, but that wouldn't be something I would normally think to ask a
and some of
director.
these,
Oh, have you billed for your grants in the last 3 years?
some of these I understand that someone else in the office other than Angie, who is responsible for it, certain programs, someone else had put their grant billings on the previous director's desk and they just never were approved and signed so they could be submitted.
I think the advantage to
Just
software,
saying.
to some degree, this is a general statement, is if every department has a spreadsheet, how they're managing their grants, and the person in that department leaves, moves out of state, retires.
Right.
And somebody else has got to go in there and try and figure it out. If we had software for some cases, I know Greg's looking at sales tax software that, then there's not just one person that has a spreadsheet that they're doing it their way in their department. It provides a more uniform system across the institution.
Well, especially, I would think it would be helpful too, that when we have a retirement or a move, if everybody's kind of across the departments are using kind of a similar, they can help each other out. The new person that comes, it's like, No, they had their way of doing it, and they go back in this room and we don't really know what happens. And then we get a check 3 years later.
Technology is not the devil in this county needs to.
Jen spent a lot of time going through looking for spreadsheets that Glenn had used to calculate various things. So, just not the best way. And I think auditors typically don't like 500 different spreadsheets for stuff.
No. It can be altered.
Anything else?
Not for that.
Talked ourselves
You wanna
out.
just give me
I
that?
have some questions for us, but not.
Okay.
them.
Commissioner, just that deposit slip, I'll pick it up and take it for you wherever.
Oh, fill out your deposit slip.
I run that, or you can charter a plane, we'll fly to the bank.
I can just sign the back and hand it.
Charter a plane, yeah, I know the code for that now. It's a
The
dangerous
direct
thing.
deposit forms are on the shared drive.
Yeah, we'll find out why it didn't work.
I was gonna say, I'm sure somebody will come to me and say, hey, bring me another check.
Okay, you had questions for us? Thank you all. You're welcome to
Okay,
stay.
thanks.
Enjoy your.
How does
Enjoy
the,
your lunch.
how does the, and I'm just asking for insight, I'm
Sure.
not complaining about it. How does the longevity pay work here?
Okay.
One-time thing you guys authorized with when you bumped up the department head and everything, and then you had that longevity pay piece in it.
Yeah, it's actually, yeah, maybe you would be more, as for the longevity pay and how that works,
So far as,
For general employees or?
general employees. Because we used to have it before, it was in the union contracts, but then we basically did it.
I
It's,
think a
it's,
couple years ago, Randy.
yeah, it
we
went
have a
to
policy
every,
for it.
I think it's, I'm guessing maybe 0 to 5 years, you don't get it.
qualify. I think it's 10, isn't
10
it?
years.
Because we had a discussion, because
10 to
the idea is when
15 is
you,
$100 and then 15 years and more, then it goes to 250 and then.
not for commissioners,
And that's per pay period?
No, not for elected.
not for
Per
elected,
month.
per month.
Yeah, they get, yeah.
It comes out on the 25th check.
Because there was some
Because after
push,
10 years, you're maxed out.
you're maxed out on your step increases, and so the
Takes you
idea
12
was.
years to get to 10 years.
Oh, so you're,
Step down.
oh, well, then we should have made it 12.
You signed it, not us.
No, it wasn't my idea.
So you have this as like just a little monthly
Sometimes we
tax
reach
bonus
consensus.
for the people that are more than likely pegged out on their increases.
It's an age-old way that. for
Don't say age old.
Well, it's been around for a long time for retention.
Right.
Whether it's.
Right, that you value long-term
No,
employees.
I'm not
and-
complaining about it, I'm just asking you how.
I don't know if it's affected. how-
I think there's still time for a second paragraph on that newspaper article.
So in the electives, they do pay, the second payday in November, and so they get theirs once they're reelected to their term. So their first term, they don't get anything. If they're reelected, then they get $500 per term.
Elected
Except for
to
the
get it, huh?
Except the
don't.
commissioners, you guys are different.
We never get any of those.
Union contracts historically always have a little.
Right,
I'm assuming we don't because we authorized it for everybody else.
right, and we
But didn't
can't,
want to give ourselves the pay
we
raise.
can't. so-
Well, you can, you just don't get it till after the next election.
Right, so why would I care?
Are you telling us something?
No, I'm not,
I
no, I'm
just-
not saying anything. I'm just saying, historically, anything to do with, yeah.
I was
Because
thinking
you
about
just have
compensation.
second paragraph of that newspaper.
Yeah, I know.
Right there.
Why?
Stop the presser. Yeah, why do I?
Commissioner, I can get you a copy of that policy.
No, I'm good. I just kind of wanted to know what that breakdown was and what the dollar amount was. Doesn't need to be exact numbers. I got enough to answer my question. Next question I have is, when is the last time, since we're all budgeting? I'm gonna get breaks thrown at me if I keep up though. When was the last time we've had a board discussion on VR&R on when we replace vehicles? Since we have, I guess I'd say 100,000 miles or 10 years, cars last more than that now.
I would say not as a policy, general policy, but we have them every budget year just because we routinely turn them down, just because it's on the
So you do it
schedule,
on an item by item.
item by
basis.
item, and then it's not an automatic. It's you're eligible to request if it was on the schedule, but we've said no before. If it's like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense.
Is there some?
We can wait, come back a year
There's some
later.
on there that we're gonna have some discussions.
Okay.
Sometimes it depends on how that vehicle is used.
How you doing?
Law enforcement vehicle is gonna get well more and more.
Well, it's gonna have, yeah,
Oh, okay.
100,000 miles on the engine without ever driving. All the park time.
Oh, I have some.
Which then brings up another question. I guess Mr. Dave would be the answer to this one as well. With our sheriff vehicles that had cracked exhaust manifolds,
I talked to you on the email,
that
but.
had cracked exhaust manifolds causing people to get, what is the take on it?
Okay,
They just put a new manifold on it, weld the crack.
I don't know
We're
what
still
they
driving them. Are we
Right, they
still
did some
having
sort of
that?
retrofit. I don't believe
Inspecting
so.
them regularly to
I
make
believe
sure that we
so.
don't have
That they did, there was some
I got your office in the right spot.
retro.
Make sure.
I just stole your office.
Oh, that's fine. Oh, you're the,
What any of these
Well, you did.
Jen's
Doors on the wrong
office
side.
yeah, door's on the wrong side.
Are you the corner? You're the other
I was
corner?
this one, but
Okay.
it doesn't.
No, I just, that was me.
Okay, so yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure we were, because I have a feeling we're gonna have potential issues there, which I'm sure you know, that I would like to make sure that we're running those cars.
That would be a good
Some kind of
follow up with the
inspection.
sheriff as far as what he's
You
doing.
know, taking them over to the exhaust shop every 3 months and do the oil change, and just make sure we don't.
Make sure everything's still whatever the retrofit. was.
Right. So, yeah, if I don't remember, next time we do, meet with the sheriff,
She
bring
should
that
be
up,
able to
please.
pick from the 80 and two packets right where you.
Boy, that's a good printer, man. I printed that, I started feeling that.
I know.
Look at that. It's like, wow, these are like swatches.
Got that right.
Here's my.
By the way, it's
Start
noon,
these down
Gordy,
here.
we're supposed to bring pizza.
Pizza, that would have been a good idea.
That is a good idea, Cory.
Oh, boy, did you miss the boat on that one.
Next time, lunch meeting.
Well, we brought up that lunch meeting at the fairgrounds and everybody just kind of sat back. So we decided we better not ask people to go to lunch with us. Apparently we scare them, I guess. What is this, desk material?
Discs.
Yeah, so these are the veneers that we looked at, and on the small little copy swatch, they
actually brought
that's the actual.
cherry walnut.
What are you guys thinking?
I'm a darker guy, but
Jake,
Blank walnut or blank oak?
yeah.
you're what?
So this one or this one? This is the cherry. I'm guessing from my eye.
Trying to make sure that, my house matches my office.
So you're this one.
I actually
He's either one
have
of those
cherry
two.
in my house.
But you've just dropped it. See, I've got walnut and oak in my house, so
I'm just-
you've seen it, haven't you? Yeah, you were at that.
Walnut?
No, the oak
Oh,
in my house.
just,
You didn't go inside or?
no, I didn't go inside. I've seen it on Zoom.
Oh,
Just
We've all
Zoom
seen it on
picture.
Zoom.
Yeah.
that's usually just behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Couldn't remember if you went in or not.
Just say I would have been the one. My backup would have been the one that you guys didn't like, so.
Well, I'm rethinking now. Because again, that's what I have in my house is
See,
actually
the only one I'm
cherry.
not throwing
It's actually
out is
darker.
oak, and it's because I have it everywhere and I'm tired of looking at it. That's true. That would be my.
Yeah,
that would be
yeah,
my second.
that, I would do the same. This would be my first, this would be my second.
You went walnut and then oak or walnut and cherry?
Walnut cherry.
I would be the same. Walnut, cherry, oak is last.
All right, so we go in with walnut.
Walnut it is.
All right, so all the furniture will be walnut.
Everything's
Okay,
walnut around.
one decision made, good.
So maybe the harder part now is the pieces, the furniture setup. And so you guys, the stuff we handed out today is the same stuff we've handed out before. I just wanted to make sure that everybody had it today. And so I don't know if you had any thoughts on what layout you were thinking of, or a combination of some of these.
For me, I've already kind of, I'm assuming, I'm going off your old packet, so I'm assuming the numbers are the same. Maybe.
Yeah, so this is the one that they did several versions with your office individually. I think it's option A, B, and C. I think they're all gonna be similar. But it's
That's correct. And I had one question. I was going with C. And I guess I have one question. Eventually, when this thing gets built, can I get some kind of table or something in here?
we can add one now. You can actually put like one of those lower lateral files. If I have a picture.
Well, I was
of it.
hoping it's more of just a table top, so I can throw an office fridge underneath it.
Okay. Sure, we can do something like that. Yeah, 'cause I think it's.
Because, yeah, if that can just be an open area with the lateral one, or it can be a separate, I don't care, just because I'm kind of thinking of throwing a refrigerator on there, so might as well have some space on top of it.
Yeah, because it's almost 3 feet, so, okay.
Other than that, yes, option C, includes that.
Option C.
Otherwise, the sun will be in my eyes, or the sun will be on my back.
I like that option.
This one?
Yeah. Yep, that's it. Okay.
Next. They didn't do their homework.
Well, I did, but
That was one of the easiest options so far.
yeah. I don't actually want much, because the more horizontal surface you give me, the more I'm gonna stack it. Exactly, and I don't, and it's all stuff that I don't ever use.
No.
Yeah, that's what, I don't really want any bookshelves, I don't want any, my bookshelves
I'm
now
thinking
are full
refrigerator to
of,
coffee pot, so.
plans of things that date back, 14, actually longer, because they got left, I started with
You
stuff,
inherited them,
I
yeah.
inherited stuff. So. Then it's like the half uppers and stuff, I don't use the ones I have. There's junk I threw in there 10 years ago. It's still, once in a while, I'll open them up just to see what's in there. All I want is a desk. I want, on this A2, I want, this is configured the way, this is other than it's got the windows on the side, and I'm in my office, the door's here like this.
Right.
I just want this desk, but I want this rotated so that when you come in, the desk is this, the L is this way. And I don't want anything in front of the windows, and I want the 2 chairs, and
Okay,
that's really all I need.
okay.
I'm trying to figure out where.
Below it, do you want like, they have it, like, I think they call it a box drawer, which is 2 small drawers.
Right, that's
with a
fine.
File underneath.
With stuff that I won't ever use, but
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I can't find an option A2. What are you looking at?
Oh,
Maybe you didn't
Oh,
look.
you're D2.
got another one.
Oh, well, it says
D2,
E2.
A2.
Like all of these where that's like the simplest.
Sorry, they all start looking the same.
Yeah.
It's this, in this package.
Oh, I didn't get that package. That's probably why.
So I guess for ordering purposes, you don't need layout.
I'm just
This
curious how they were doing it.
A2, D, whatever, D2, this desk system, that's fine, not this stuff over. I don't need all that stuff.
You're just doing the desk and not the box thing behind and not the drawers. Is that what you're saying?
I'm just doing this and this piece, except I'm gonna rotate them and not this. Yeah, so not all that. I don't need all that. That's just gonna be full of garbage.
So on A2, that little short section is an adjustable height table.
Computer monitor.
Right.
Table right here.
If you want it to be.
It's really a
All right.
desk and this is a table.
And then you're looking, interested in a couple of those other chairs, because you'll have a lot more room.
big chair, big chair.
If you like the adjustable on the C
And
one,
then,
that
so
whole
like,
desk
These,
adjusts
but
the whole
smaller,
U-shaped
so it
part.
fits in right here, you know.
She's talking, I can barely hear her. Holy crap.
On the C
Oh,
part,
well, that's true.
Get rid of that
Actually,
stuff, and then I
and
just.
so that all goes up and down the
So a place
whole.
I can have a chair and a couple small ones.
Okay.
Monitor.
that might actually be nice,
Yep.
because that's an issue for me where the heights are not really right. Okay.
There you go.
The other thing about these.
Yeah, actually, that one's a better,
I did have it.
C,
Oh, the height.
yeah.
I did have a copy, I'm sorry.
Okay,
So
that's all right.
C2
You handled me.
without all the uppers and all the other, I don't want any of that stuff. I don't really see, because I don't really store anything in my office
Like
other
that
than
and C.
Hard hats.
Oh, well, hard hat, there's that.
Oh, yeah, so like C1.
Let me go back and see.
So yeah, it wasn't really clear that the C options, it's a full kind of a L-shaped height adjustable.
Oh. Okay. Actually, no, I could do that. C1
C1 without the bookshelf,
without the bookshelf.
and then the
And I want the two chairs.
chairs.
And I want, if they'll fit, I would like the larger chairs too.
Okay,
In that, that's what I had, yeah, these, I said, can these be office chairs?
Yeah.
Because most folks that come see me are like me. This one.
Well, you guys are all stealing my idea now?
Yeah, well, that's what I said, I was gonna do it
Then you
anyway,
get- then
so making him uniform with the crowd, so yeah, no, I'm two of those leathery chair things. Maybe it's getting a little coffee table thing in the middle then.
Yeah, that's fine.
My main worry is this one. The actual desk chair, being a big fat guy that tends to fall out of things and break things.
I think, yeah,
I've sat in so many of these chairs and they're not heavy duty.
yeah,
They're not wide.
Yeah.
Not knocking on you, but someone like you goes and sits, somebody going, yeah, no, that's perfect.
Perfect.
And then you get somebody that's top heavy. And it's like this one doesn't have the tightening on the bottom that
Yeah.
tightens the back.
uh-huh.
That would be the one I would choose, but I don't see the tightening thing on it.
Are these options or is this,
So this, let me go through this if I can find a copy for myself. There it is. So the top one is the fabric, and I have the real stuff here. So I'll just pass this around, but most of the rest of the colors and textures, most of the stuff is for cubicles, so the panels are, this is the fabric, and there's a swatch of that fabric for the cubicle panels. And
Like the
then
dividers.
this is the color of the shades, the blinds that'll be in your offices. Yeah, that are blackouts. And then,
So this is for everybody else's office that has cubicle dividers.
yeah. And then the offices will have these two as a plastic laminate. Basically, the rest of us in the private offices have plastic laminate surfaces.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's nice stuff. And then a combination of all these three colors will be in the cubicles, the
Okay.
gray and the,
It's actually a good
Almost black.
swatch of colors there.
yeah. So that was the hardest thing, I think, on this whole job is picking the colors for
Right.
everything.
Hardest thing in the whole job.
If anybody gets backwards, then they'll get backwards also.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the swatch of the material is a little bit grayer, lighter gray, but yeah, it turned out pretty good.
so I put in a phone call, I'm
Should
waiting to
get
hear
these.
back from Blair about setting up a
Yeah,
bunch of
the
that.
big
oak.
C1 with no bookshelves,
If you
two
wanna-
chairs.
We're interested in going that direction. I want to talk to Blair
Okay.
about it.
Um,
But I've got the skitter out there, I can pull it out anytime.
That's what we have to tell them.
Yeah, for the ones that we're gonna build in-house.
Yeah.
So he doesn't want this back
Yeah,
either.
I don't think we talked to Gordy about it.
Uh,
So, Gordy?
Yes.
I got big oak tree
Uh-huh.
that's cut down. And I was thinking about taking it up to Blair Simpson. He did a lot of the stuff in the Pioneer Center.
Okay.
A lot of those big stuff.
But that's
And I can
good.
slab that
It
thing
is.
out.
That blacktop.
And then we can put it in his kiln for the next 3 months. And if we want, we can build a bunch of those conference tables out of that.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful. And so that's why I was asking. It's kind of the same thing I did in my house. If you want to come and look at it and see if.
Yeah.
I did all my counters, my shelves, all out of Oregon white oak.
Okay.
And, we have more Oregon white oak than anywhere else in the Washington state. So I thought it. But if you guys are interested in that, since you're talking about making those tables.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
You get little bronze placards that say donated by Jake Anderson. We can name the room after you, Jake.
No, my name.
We can name the building after you.
Enough people use my name in non-good ways.
No, I'm
so.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
I'll get it pulled out.
Okay, thank you. So just to make sure I understand, Dave, your layout, just the L desk. On
No, I'm gonna
C1.
do, yeah, well,
The U, you want the.
I
full
want the U is fine, except I'm gonna
Okay.
rotate it and
Okay.
stick it here, so I don't know what this dead corner would be. I want this rotated this way.
Right.
Yeah, that's what yeah.
That's what I just draw it in there how you want it set.
That's a good idea, because then he's,
Well, I figure I
Get it
can
wrong.
move it around, just order it.
No,
I'll
it's not
just throw it in there in
Yeah.
a box and I'll do it. I don't care.
Yeah.
it'd be a union labor to move desks.
Okay.
And then we'll talk to Lee and Ibby Jane too, and Jen to get their layout squared away. And then I think we've have everybody, right?
So,
You've been through everybody already?
Yes,
Wow,
yeah,
busy bee.
yeah, it's been a busy 2 weeks.
a couple from Erin that she didn't.
Okay.
Wanted to figure out, but yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Like I said, for me, office chair, just blacky, leathery, something big, fat, wide for a big, fat guy.
Yeah, what's our,
Yeah, I'm hoping we can,
like, I don't, this one in the middle seems heavier duty to me, but it says, everything's available and different. I'm not really wild about the chrome,
base,
yeah.
yeah, like a dark.
Like, I like the darker.
I like this chair,
Yeah, actually, I like this chair that I'm in.
Okay,
Well, but this is gonna go to the commissioner's chambers. We need an office chair.
Right.
But something of this regards, I'm like him. I'm not big on the chromey thing. I want to make sure it has a tightening knob back there so I can.
adjust.
Some of them for us big guys that are top heavy, when you recline, they recline yay far. And others, boy, they go
All
back.
the way, yeah.
So that's kind of the minute a top heavy guy sits in there, wants to throw you out of back. So it's just kind of, to me, it's how far back.
Okay,
It's hard for, I guess if you were holding a backpack full of rocks, you would get the idea, but sometimes chairs are nice for people like you and.
not,
Where do you want me to write I've written on 3 different things now, so
yeah, if you got it,
Well,
take it.
I don't really. So I want this one without the bookcase.
Right.
I don't really care. Again, I'm gonna rotate this configuration this
Right.
way.
Okay.
And then the 2 chairs and some kind of little table. I want those chairs. They're probably gonna go here like this. Oh, this is actually my office.
Right.
Not that it matters. Although I'm curious, what are they gonna fill? I was over there today. The space, the gap between the beam, the post and the wall. Why are they not drywalling that?
It's, because you get movement, and so they have it's like a metal piece
Oh,
that will.
So Jake and I can slip notes to each other through.
Yeah, well, there'll be insulation there too. We could
Leave them
Oh, well, I don't know. It's like, that's that open public meeting kind of thing. It's like, oh no, you can't actually be, we have to leave this little, thing. Okay.
Yeah, they'll close them up.
Yeah.
Part of
So
the
that's what I'm
business.
thinking, like a chair and a chair, probably in the corner, because the window's here.
Yep.
And, or actually the window, if it was in this office, it would be
In front.
in front of it.
And I'm
Okay.
So,
pretty sure this is that little,
so I don't know if you want, if I just tear that out.
You can keep that one. This one would be great for me to keep.
Okay,
And then I think the chairs, we got the chairs.
right,
So you can hang on to that too.
okay.
I'm assuming this is that little kitchenette
Yes.
thing that we have to.
Yep. Let you hold on to that.
Oh,
You got the package too, right? Okay.
Does that make any sense to you?
that does make sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's gotta be difficult.
Well, I just wanted to make sure too, you wanted this other piece of it, not just the.
Yeah, no, I didn't, I rethought that. It's like, I do need a little more. I gotta have some place to stack all my junk, so.
You know, we have the clerk's office, but will that fit in there too? I like the U-shape.
And this part can be adjustable.
And they probably need a crack
Your
over shelves and
office
storage and
is-
cabinets and
Oh.
shelves and.
I think the one that was a little bit different. so I don't
Yeah,
know.
so we
I
still,
have all that stuff here, I'm looking at it, and it's
You
all I
did
ever
get
do is
clerks,
just
but
add.
these are all
more. I
L-shaped.
never actually
Yeah,
take
so
anything
this
off
one-
of those and use them. Like I have every
Yeah.
comp plan update,
Right,
every,
but this
which
one
we
doesn't
have
have
on
this.
file. It's like, why do I
That's
need a
what-
copy? Why do I need a copy? But it's
So
like,
you want.
everything I get a copy of, goes on the shelf. Well, I'm almost out of shelf.
I was
yeah.
the same way. I was cut over here.
Yeah, when was the last time I ever took anything out of that shelf? Never, I've never took anything off that.
I know.
When we were trading fishing access.
There you go. Never.
I thought I
I
had.
didn't know it
these.
was over there.
So it's.
And I'm pushing for everything to get rid of all this
All this
paper.
stuff
That'd
as
be
much as
another-
possible.
If I don't have a place to put
I
it, I
think
can't
we
put it.
need to discuss as a
Do
county,
you think?
Even if they made something to go in
the
there.
potential for a bigger county-wide scanner.
This office in there.
Going
Get
forward,
everybody.
so that when we, because
Or they
we're
can
not
put
just
it
cramming to
just-
get everything digital now, it's gonna be
Just
an
a board put
ongoing.
in there, it doesn't
Yeah,
have to
but
be.
if you don't print it.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Something
have a
that-
U-shape.
Yeah.
That's all I
Okay,
need.
well
It doesn't have to be anything fancy.
You don't give them a printer.
Doesn't have to elevate.
Yeah, because there's a little bit of space here, so if we shove this out, there might
So
be
you wanna try to take all the
a
dinosaurs
narrow counter.
and
Yeah,
switch
it's
them
all
all right away.
Look, you can,
It's just
you
a
can
place
come
to
kicking and screaming.
say
and
organized
with
stuff,
the
because
computer,
I-
you
Yeah.
come Understanding, but if
You
we're
know, and
paying
these can,
all this money. for
you have a lot of
laptop,
space,
we'll
these
replace it,
could
and
slide up
where's
if
your
you wanted to
use
put
it?
something behind them.
I've got file cabinets I'm gonna put in and I'll take
You're
my
gonna get a lot of kicking and screaming.
bookshelf I'll take.
Okay,
I've already
So
got.
I am
There are-
all,
There
there
chairs,
are
I've already got an office
Ones that
chair, I
have
don't need any of
that.
that.
Right.
okay,
as long
Yes.
as we're,
okay.
And you don't want
but
any
see, I think
counter
we're
off
still
chairs,
printing
too,
because
you just
people are
got
going
it.
to be coming in and wanting a copy of
Yourself.
something, because
Yeah.
they're dinosaurs in their house
We talked
that
to her,
don't have
see what-
access to
But
print.
that's all I need.
Put
Okay.
stuff on the screen.
Is Zippy taking
Well,
around
we
today?
might need to hand them a
Okay,
copy of
and
something.
then I'll
They can-
catch up
they
with
can
Jen
get it
too.
in there.
Yeah, she's here
Right,
today
but they
too. I
don't
think she's ready to
necessarily
go.
have email.
Good.
Well, then we have a printer.
Yeah.
We can.
That's what I said, we're gonna have to at least have a few.
Well, we'll always have a few
Yeah.
printers. I'm just
Yep.
saying.
She doesn't want chairs.
Our
It's a
county,
process.
right, our county stuff digitally fine,
And she has her office here.
because yes, that's less crap on a bookshelf. As long as there's a storage system in your computer in a searchable drive
Jen's already told me
to find the thing.
for furniture. Yeah, I think she kind of said which one she preferred, but I don't know if she's seen these latest.
She's coming back. If he is at lunch right now, but she'll be back at 1.
Okay, we'll catch up with her. All right,
Which floor is your thing gonna be on over there?
what's that?
You floor 3 over there?
3, yeah, yep. Yeah, it's changed a lot since the last time you guys were here. I mean, they're sheet rocking most of the 3rd floor is done now too. So they're just
So you just
blasting
want
through
these
it.
out. Yep, it'll work. All right. Chair.
Now that they removed all the scaffolding, you actually can see the building again too.
Yeah.
Two of these.
Well, we were walking to lunch and we're like, boy, you think they should have pressure washed that sucker before they removed the scaffolding? but I'm sure they'll go up on a highway or something
Yeah.
and do it
That would be helpful.
a little bit at a time that way.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
they'll wash it off and then they'll let it dry and then they'll seal all the brick too.
Has the city been in contact with you about whatever, I think it's a sewer line back in the alleyway?
I talked to Doug Frantum this week and he said that they're working with Dustin to try and figure out what they want to do. They're gonna do just minimal, try and fix the people that are a problem.
As
And,
opposed to redoing the line?
yeah,
Oh, gosh.
yeah. So
Let's put a Band-Aid on something and. Because they were over talking to Darlene at Hot Rods and asking her to not use her toilet in the basement.
Oh,
She said that Larry was there and they had put dye in it and they couldn't find out where it was going.
oh,
And it's like, it's what I'm sitting here going, and that whole, I've heard it from multiple businesses over here, they're paranoid that we're hooking up to it and every time we flush, it's gonna be in their business.
I hope not.
That's, but and then the.
That's a big old building.
And then the city puts a Band-Aid on it and it's just, I see that as a can of worms coming, so.
Yeah, because we'll have 3 stories of
Pressure,
head.
Yeah.
On our water,
and they're gonna have 3 stories of pressure coming up out of there
yeah.
and they're gonna be pissed, so. I don't know that the Band-Aid is the right option, but.
No,
Because we're gonna be the ones yelled at when it happens. If they Band-Aid it and it happens, we're the bad guys.
yeah.
So,
Well, we've been encouraging them to do it since we started. And,
it came in higher than they wanted, so.
yeah. Yeah, that's tough. I'm finished.
That's all I've heard about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Got anything else from us? We're good? You can get them ordered?
Thank
Are
you.
you on vacation starting next week?
Next Friday, start next Friday, yeah.
Where are you going?
Sedona
Nope.
and then, Austin.
There's a big difference between those 2 places.
Yeah,
Have you been to Sedona before?
no, I've never been to
It
Sedona.
was cool.
And the pictures look really cool.
Yeah, it was like, it reminded me of the Flintstones.
Yeah, it does.
Really?
It does,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was cool. I flew in there and flew over. Oh my God, it was neat.
Oh, yeah, in your plane?
Mhm.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah, it was breathtaking. We were only there for breakfast and, cause I had to.
Must be
go
nice to
somewhere.
just fly somewhere for breakfast. Chartered plane.
I'm good. Yes.
And fuel.
I know the code.
I know the code now. I know the code. But, yeah, so the right in the center of it where the airport is,
Uh-huh,
it's cool. Go up there for breakfast one day while you're there.
uh-huh.
Yeah, it's really neat. Some beautiful planes come in and you sit up on top of this bench. It's almost like when you fly in, it's like flying onto a big aircraft carrier.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like the airport's like a mesa.
Yeah,
where
it's its
it
own mesa.
sits
Oh,
on
it's
its own
super
mesa
neat.
up there.
Yeah, really neat. And then the
hiking.
hiking's pretty cool, but just some of those houses, like they built these houses like into the
The rock.
rock.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, I can't wait. I could use a
I
few
think we
days.
have big rattlesnakes there though, so.
I'll be careful.
You gone for a
Hiking's
week
out.
or 2 weeks, or how long you gonna be gone?
3 weeks.
3 weeks, holy cow.
Yeah, my wife convinced me to drive to do a road trip, so,
Oh, you're driving?
yeah,
I wouldn't wanna sit in an airplane COVID mask on either, so.
yeah.
Not that bad. Except for your ears after that many years.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Well, enjoy your vacation, sir.
I will. Thank
Try
you.
not to break things while you're gone.
Okay, I'm sure things will carry on. I have good staff.
The furniture picked up for you when you get back.
There you go.
Fine.
It'll be fine.
Pink polka dots.
Yeah.
Well, I guess.
I'm going over this proposal. That's the one and
Oh, for the AV stuff.
yeah,
For what?
the AV stuff that
AV
we
stuff
got
over
here and
Oh, God.
doesn't look like they listened very
Does anybody?
well. I mean, it's cheaper than the other one by enough that it was worthwhile doing it.
Looking at it.
But like, we could be our own reality TV show here. I mean, this is some serious stuff.
He's ready to go to lunch.
Lee doesn't want to be on.
No, just that zip her up.
Yeah.
Own reality TV show.
Yeah.
We are our own reality.
We are.
All right.
Well, at least we have a couple of people watching.
Yeah. Do you have anything else before we?
No, I would say these are nice discussions, because there's all these times where I'd like to ask you questions about this, that, or the other, and there's just no place to do it.
It is.
So that's what workshops are for.
It needs to, yeah.
Very good.
All right. Well, then I guess I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I guess I'll second it.
Well, I can't make the motion.
I don't have another meeting until 4. I'd like to drag this out before.
You mean you plan to make the motion?
Is that what I heard?
Yeah. I'll make
Do I have a
it.
I will
second?
second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to adjourn our regular meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We are adjourned. What's your 4 o'clock?